Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had a rival in love part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story LisaGracex from AO3. So let's start the video. Prologue. Chapter text. Bakugo Katsuki was not one to have a thriving social life. He was never one to put too much focus into friends or relationships. Bakugo Katsuki had friends now, sure, but he had never gone out of his way to make them. Goal-driven and career-focused, Bakugo often saw friends and relationships as a distraction to his goal to be the #1 hero. It wasn't that he wasn't interested in girls or that none were interested in him either. He had plenty of interest from both girls and guys alike, and he still had emotions and hormones after all. At the age of 18, a year out of 𝐬𝐽, Bakugo Katsuki had become the #15th hero in the ranks. Working under his old mentor, 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻, he quickly rose up the ranks. He was proud of his work as a hero, not letting media and press stories about how much of a bad attitude he had get him down. His time with 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 had proved to be beneficial, making him a lot more agreeable than he had been in the past. He didn't keep in touch with too many people from UA. Really only Kirishima and Kaminari on the regular. He'd occasionally speak to Shiro and Izuku, but mostly when Kirishima organized something. All of this to say, he didn't pay much attention to the lives of people around him. He didn't remember the names of people they were dating, and he didn't remember random facts they'd talked to him about. If someone spoke to him about an annoying work colleague, he'd react in the moment but do not expect him to remember about it. All of this to say that he really did not mean to fall for her. He may not be the most attentive to those in his life, but he'd never try hurt any of them intentionally like that. Girls were never even on his radar. He swore on his life. So imagine his surprise when he went to work one day and was introduced to his new partner. "Ah, Dynamite. There you are. Meet our newest recruit, Starlight. She'll be your new partner," 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 introduced. Next to his mentor stood a petite girl with bright pink eyes and white hair as straight as a pin. "I don't need a partner," Bakugo tooted. The girl folded her arms, rolling her eyes. "Pleasure to meet you too," she said sarcastically. "It's not about whether or not you need a partner. It's about what's best for the streets and civilians. We need more heroes on the streets, and you're a great one to show Starlight the ropes," 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 said. Bakugo looked the new hero in front of him up and down, cocking his head. She raised an eyebrow at him, keeping her arms folded. "Fine," he agreed. "I'm glad you agree, although I wasn't really asking," 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 said, his eyes narrowed. Starlight stood tall, her small stature not getting her down as she stood proudly in front of the two heroes. She had an attitude. She had spunk. Bakugo could admire that. Her shimmery black catsuit clung to her body, and he tried his best to not pay attention to how perfectly it fit her. "Dynamite, show Starlight around the building. You'll be sharing an office for the time being. Once you're done with the tour, show her our paperwork routine. Then we'll go on patrol after lunch," 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 said. Bakugo grit his teeth but just nodded. "Come on. Don't fall behind," he gruffed. She rolled her eyes again, and 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 placed his hand against his forehead. "Good luck," 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 said to her. She followed Bakugo through the building, catching up to him. She walked next to him and he shot her a dirty look. "I don't want or need a partner. So don't expect us to be friends or anything. Just stay out of my way as much as you can," he said. She kissed her teeth. "Who said I wanted to be paired up with you? You're pretty infamous, you know. I just want to work and kick some villain ass. I don't want to deal with your bitching," she bit back. He tried to hide the smirk that wanted to tug on his lips. This girl would be fun. He pushed open a door, showing off a training room. "This is the gym and training room. I'm in here quite a lot. If we train together, don't expect me to go easy on you," he said. "Wouldn't dream of it," she said. Starlight looked around, giving a nod of approval. "Do you guys have heavier weights than this?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure your scrawny arms can handle heavier?" he retorted. She let out a small huff, scowling at him. "Your publicist needs a raise. You are so much worse than the media makes you out to be," she glared. This time he did smirk. Oh yeah? Well, you're not so great yourself. You have an attitude problem, he said. Her jaw dropped. Me? She exclaimed. He nodded. Yep. Here I am, showing you around, and you're saying our weights aren't good enough for little Miss Princess over here, he said. Her scowl deepened. You are unbelievable, she scoffed. He chuckled, glancing over his shoulder at her. Don't be so uptight, princess. Follow me, he instructed. She pouted before following him down the hallway. He showed her more rooms before opening up his office. It was a large room, with tall windows that overlooked the city. Pretty impressive, Starlight said. Bakugo's desk was by the windows, paperwork stacked high on top of it. Bookcases were built into the walls, and she was impressed by his collection. You collect a lot of books? She asked him. He shrugged. Suppose you could say that, he said. He sat at his desk, grimacing at the stack of paperwork. You got a spare chair? She asked. Nah. Let me go grab one for you, he said. He stood up, leaving her alone in his office. Starlight looked around, deciding to look at his book collection. There were several books and pieces of manga that she also enjoyed. She pulled a book off of his shelf, tracing over the cover. You read that one before? Bakugo asked, appearing with a chair. Not this one. But I love the author, she said. Really? You like Nakahara? He asked, raising an eyebrow. She rolled her eyes. Yes. Is that so hard to believe? She challenged. A little. You look so girly. I thought he'd be a bit too gruesome for you, he said. He put the chair next to his and sat back down. He flipped through the paperwork stack, letting out a small groan. Let me help, Starlight said. She sat next to him and he passed her a report. Here. The notes are all there, I just need them typed up, he said. She nodded. Best Jeanist had given Bakugo a spare laptop which he in turn gave to Starlight. She logged on and quickly began typing up reports with him, looking over his shoulder to see how they should be formatted. They would finish reports at the same time, moving on to the next ones silently. After about 2 hours of typing, he leaned back in his seat, cracking his back. I'm starving. You want a break? He asked. She shrugged. Yeah. I could eat something, she said. There's a really good ramen place down the road if you want to come with me, he said. He looked at the pile of paperwork, feeling relieved at how small it had gotten. I love ramen. Spicier the better, she said. I agree. Too many people are weaklings when it comes to spice, he said. Oh, tell me about it, she laughed. As her laugh hit his ears, it felt like his heart skipped a beat. He frowned, placing his hand on his chest. What the hell was that? You okay? She asked him. Yeah. My chest just felt a bit funny. But I'm fine, he said. There's a bug going round. You should be careful, she said. I don't get sick, he tooted at her. She rolled her eyes at him once more. Could you be any more insufferable? She asked. He shrugged. Could you be? Any more uptight? He countered. She puffed her cheeks out before sighing. Whatever. Let's get lunch, she said. Bakugo held open the door for Starlight as they reached the ramen restaurant. You been here before? He asked her. She shook her head. No, never. I've only just moved to the city, so I've not really been anywhere, she said. Oh yeah? How long you lived here? He asked. A couple weeks now, she said. A waiter showed them to a table and they sat across from one another. She rested her head on her fist as they looked at each other. What made you move here then? He asked. We playing 20 questions or something? She questioned. He scowled. We're working together whether we like it or not. May as well get to know one another, Bakugo said. She sighed. My boyfriend lives here. I moved to be with him, she answered. He felt that weird feeling in his chest again, except this time it was feeling a lot tighter. Oh yeah? How long you guys been together? He asked. A year now. He's a pro hero as well. We met during a work experience event 1.5 years ago. When it was over, he asked me out. We've been doing the long distance since then, but it was getting hard, so I decided to move here, she told him, scanning the menu as she spoke. Wow. Seems pretty serious then, he said. A waiter approached them, smiling warmly at them. Hi. Are you guys ready to order? He asked them. Yeah, I am. Are you? Bakugo asked her. Starlight nodded. Yeah. Could I get the chili tofu ramen and a green tea please? She ordered. The waiter nodded, writing it down. I'll just get the same, Bakugo said. Wonderful. It'll be right up, the waiter said. He left them alone again and Starlight sat back in her seat. So do you have a real name? Or are you just Dynamite? She asked him. Bakugo Katsuki, he said. Nice to meet you properly then, Bakugo Katsuki. I'm Furukawa Misaki, she said. Nice name. So what's your quirk then? He asked. It's called Stardust. I can collect all the dust particles and atoms from around us and use them to transform into whatever I want. I can also break down objects into particles for my use if I need to, said. She moved her hand, gathering a small amount of dust and putting it into the shape of a cat. He looked at the cat, impressed. Seems good for long-distance attacks, he said. She dissolved the cat and quickly turned it into a dagger. Also good for close-up attacks, she said. Is it any good as a dagger though? He asked her. She flicked her hand, letting the dagger press into his hand. It pierced his skin, a small trickle of blood appearing. Shit, he hissed. She whipped her hand, getting rid of the dust altogether. It's pretty good, she said. She reached into the pocket of her catsuit, pulling out a band-aid. She passed it over to him and he tooted as he placed it over his cut. But it's decent, he admitted. What about you? She asked. My quirk is explosion. My sweat is nitroglycerin so I can make explosions from my palms, he said. Suits you, she said. What's that meant to mean? He scowled. Well, you're very feisty, she shrugged. The waiter brought over their food and drink and she was quick to break her chopsticks and take a bit of ramen. This is so good, she said, drooling over the taste. I don't go to crappy places, he said. They are their lunch in a peaceful quiet, starting to feel more at ease with each other. Where did you study? Misaki asked him. You? He asked. Oh, my boyfriend went there. I wonder if you know him. I went to Ketsubatsu, she said. Doubt it. I didn't really focus on meeting people at school, he said. Shocker, she said sarcastically. He glared at her before going back to his ramen. Furukawa continued to eat her ramen, checking her phone. My boyfriend's calling. Do you mind if I take this? She asked. He shrugged. Do what you want, he said. She stood up from the table, heading outside. He looked after as she went, tilting his head. He couldn't get a good read on her. She was gorgeous. Not that it mattered to him, of course. Was simply an observation. She had an annoying way about her. Always so quick to bite back at him. But he also liked the fact she wasn't afraid to talk back to him. Too many extras were too weak-willed, too quick to back down. He liked having someone who challenged him. Her boyfriend was either the luckiest guy alive for being with someone as beautiful as her or the biggest weakling who put up with her bossy attitude and let her walk all over him. He stared down at his ramen bowl, not wanting to be seen staring at her as she took her phone call. He twirled the noodles round his chopsticks, letting out a small huff. This was annoying. He didn't need or want a partner. He liked being on his own. Not having to wait for anyone or check on anyone else. She came back in, snapping him out of his thoughts as she sat back down. She continued to eat, looking up at him. You okay? She asked him. Yeah. I'm fine. I'm just thinking about what patrol route will be given, he lied. It'll be good to get out on the streets. I like doing the paperwork, but the streets is where the real fun is, she said. You actually like the paperwork? He asked, scoffing. She shrugged. I like all sorts of admin work. I like to organize, she said. I like things to be organized as well but still find the paperwork boring, he said. Are you done now? I'm ready to head back, she said. Yeah. I'm done, he said. He stood up, looking for his wallet. Misaki followed him to the counter and tried to reach for her purse. I've got it. First day treat. But I'll not be this nice again, Bakugo warned. Are you sure? I don't mind paying, she said. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it, he said. He paid their bill and the two pro heroes began to walk back to the agency. Thanks. I really appreciate that, she said. He shrugged. It's not a big deal, so don't make it one, he said. Misaki smiled at him as they walked down the street. This part of town is so nice, she said, looking around. If patrol is quiet, I can show you around, he said. That would be good. I've not really had a chance to have a look around yet, she said. Your boyfriend not show you about? He asked. Not yet. He's either working or so tired from work. It's been a struggle to spend much time together. But it's only been a couple weeks, so we'll get a date in soon for exploring, she smiled. Bakugo gave a small nod as they kept walking. She moved to a new city for this boyfriend and he couldn't even take a day off to spend time with her? They made it back to the agency and went back to Bakugo's office. Do you want me to call you Bakugo or Dynamite when we're in work? Misaki asked, sitting at her laptop again. In the office when it's just us, I don't mind if you call me Bakugo. But everyone else goes by their hero names in the building and on patrol obviously, he said. She nodded. Noted. Then you can call me Furukawa when it's just us, she said. Sure, he agreed. He swallowed the lump in his throat, the air feeling thick. Misaki reached for another report, flicking through it. You've done some impressive work, Bakugo-san. How old are you? She asked. I'm 20. I turn 21 in a couple weeks though, he said. Oh really? When? She asked. 20th of April, he said. Your birthday is pretty close to mine then. I'm the 2nd of May, she said. He picked up a report, starting to type it out. Good to know, he said. They started to work on their reports, not knowing how to continue the conversation. As much as he found her annoying, he found himself not minding her being around. Maybe this could be the start of a good friendship. Kirishima would be so proud of him for finding someone new to tolerate. His chest felt weird again as he watched her type away on her laptop. She was so pretty. As much as the way people looked didn't matter much to him, he couldn't help but think that. She was beautiful. She was hardworking. She wasn't afraid of him. His heart skipped a beat as she flicked her hair over her shoulder. He had never felt like this before about someone. What the hell was going on? Misaki locked her door and kicked her shoes off. She laid down on her couch, cuddling a pillow. She was exhausted. Whilst the job hadn't been too physical today, she felt like she took in so much information. Too much information. She was excited to get properly settled into the agency though. As much as he annoyed her, she thought Bakugo would be a good partner for her. Her phone rang, making her groan a little. She picked it up, smiling when she saw her boyfriend video calling. She picked it up, sitting up properly on her couch. Hey Saki. How was your first day? He grinned at her. Oh, it was fine. My brain feels so frazzled though, she said. You feel up for coming out for a couple of drinks? He asked. She looked at the time before nodding. Sure. I'm not working till 12 tomorrow so I can come out. When should I be ready for? She asked. Is an hour too short notice? I can come pick you up. Some of the guys from school are all meeting at one of our locals, he said. She smiled. So I finally get to meet your friends? An hour suits me fine, she said. Yeah. I can't wait for them all to finally meet you. I think they think I've been making you up, he laughed. Misaki laughed with him. But I'll go shower and get ready. What's the dress code? She asked. I think the girls said they're wearing jeans and a nice top. So whatever that means, he said. She smiled. Perfect. I can do that. I'll see you soon, she said. See you soon. I love you, he said, hanging up. She ran a hand through her hair. She pushed herself off the couch, trying to find motivation to shower. She trudged up to her bathroom, getting a towel and her hairdryer ready. She turned the water on, letting out a content sigh as the hot water soothed her muscles. She scrubbed her scalp as she washed her hair, trying not to feel nervous about meeting new people. She wasn't the best at meeting new people, but she knew that her boyfriend would be there for support if she needed. She finished her shower and wrapped herself in her towel. She dried her hair, trying to think of what she could wear. She wanted to impress them but not seem too overdressed. She had those really nice ripped jeans that she could pair with her floral corset top. That seemed good. She finished her hair and got her makeup out the drawer. She applied a natural look, looking at her phone for the time. She had half an hour to finish her makeup and get dressed. She applied a taupe eyeshadow and a subtle eyeliner wing before applying her nude lipstick. That was fine. She didn't need to go full glam tonight. She went to her room, charging her phone quickly as she got changed. As she looked at her shoes, she started to feel even more nervous. What if they didn't like her? Surely if they were friends with him, they'd be nice people. She had to keep reminding herself of that. She got her nude kitten heels and put them on. Just as she finished the buckle, her door was knocked on. That must be him. She grabbed her handbag and a light jacket, opening her door. She smiled widely when she saw her boyfriend, hugging him tightly. "You look amazing," he beamed, hugging her back. "It's not too much, is it?" she asked. "Nah. You look gorgeous," he said. "Hey, good." "I was worried," she said. He let go of her, quickly pecking her lips before holding her hand. "Don't be. The others are already there," he said. He helped her down her steps before opening the taxi door for her. He gave the driver the address and held onto her hand once more when they set off. "Do you want to stay over tonight? Might make it easier for you since I'm closer," she said. "Yeah, that sounds good. Then I can walk you to work tomorrow," he said. "I'd like that," she smiled. He squeezed her hand as they got closer to the bar. When the driver stopped, her boyfriend paid before getting out and helping her out the car. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded. "As I'll ever be," she chuckled. He pressed a kiss to her cheek before opening the door for her. They walked in together and she squeezed his hand. "If you're nervous or feel overwhelmed, just let know and we can go, okay? No questions asked. Just squeeze my thigh," he said. "Thanks," she said. He waved over to a group of people sitting at a table and led her over there. "Kirishima. Good to see you, man," a boy with blonde hair with a black lightning bolt in it said. "Hey everyone. Please meet my girlfriend, Furukawa Misaki. She's just moved into the city," Kirishima introduced, smiling happily at her. "Wow. You actually exist," a boy with black hair joked. She laughed. "Yes, I exist. It's a pleasure to meet you all," she said. "Ignore 𝗧𝗏. He's a jerk. I'm 𝗧𝗏𝗁, a girl introduced herself." Kirishima sat in the booth and Misaki quickly sat next to him. He wrapped his arm around her waist as they sat and he rested his head on her shoulder. A girl with pink hair and skin let out a little squeal. "You guys are so cute." "I'm Ishido Mina," she said. "And I'm Kaminari Denki," the blonde boy said. "It's a pleasure to meet you all. 𝐒𝐻𝐁 has told me so much about you all," Misaki said. Kaminari laughed. "I dread to think what you've been told," 𝗔𝗂 shuddered. "All good things," Kirishima promised. "Can I get you guys a drink?" 𝗧𝗏 asked. "That'd be great. We doing rounds or just getting them as they come?" Kirishima asked. "We're doing rounds," Kaminari said. "Perfect. Could you grab me a beer?" Kirishima asked. "Sure." "Furukawa-san?" 𝗧𝗏 asked. Just a glass of white wine please," she said. 𝗧𝗏 went to get their drinks and Misaki moved closer into Kirishima's side. He kissed her temple and rubbed her thigh. "So, Furukawa-chan, how long have you lived in the city?" Mina asked her. "A couple weeks. I've been getting settled in pretty well," she said. "Good. Are you a pro hero as well?" 𝗔𝗏 asked. "Yeah. I went to Ketsubutsu though. We actually met on a work experience we did in 3rd year. I traveled here to get experience with Fat Gum and that's when I met 𝐒𝐻𝐁. Misaki smiled up at him. "Sorry I'm late. I didn't really want to come but figured I may as well," a gruff voice said. Misaki looked up and her eyes widened when she saw Bakugo there. "Wow. Lovely to see you as always, Bakugo," 𝗔𝗏 rolled her eyes. He noticed Misaki and his chest got that weird feeling again. "Furukawa? What are you doing here?" he asked. "You guys already know each other?" "Saki's my girlfriend," Kirishima said. Bakugo felt his chest get tight as they moved along the booth, letting him sit next to her. "Bakugo-san is my new partner at work. It was my first day today," Misaki said. "No way. What a small world. Bakugo's my best friend," Kirishima said. "That's crazy. Don't feel jealous of you working with Bakugo," Kaminari laughed. Bakugo scowled. "The fuck is that meant to mean?" he demanded. The table laughed loudly. "That's what we're talking about," Mina said. He huffed, sinking back into his seat. 𝗧𝗏 brought their drinks back and passed Bakugo a beer. "Got an extra one in case you turned up," 𝗧𝗏 said. "Thanks man," Bakugo said. "I didn't realize you were 𝐒𝐻𝐁's friend," Misaki said to him. He shrugged. "You didn't ask," he said. She rolled her eyes. "You're so annoying," she quipped. He smirked at her. The rest of the gang looked at each other in surprise. Everyone held their breath as they waited for him to respond. Shut it. You know you love it," he said. They all felt their eyes bug out of their heads. Was he feeling okay? Kirishima chuckled. "I'm really happy that Saki has you to work with," Kirishima said, resting his head on her shoulder. She tooted. "I'm not. He's a grouchy pain in the ass," she grumbled. "She's got you all figured out after one day," Kaminari laughed. "She's playing nice now, but you should have heard her at work today," he retorted. She rolled her eyes. "It's not my fault you were being a dick," she huffed. Bakugo just laughed, shrugging. "Get used to it," he said. "You guys are gonna be great friends." "I can just tell," Kirishima said. "Yeah, if you can tolerate him then you'll fit in great," Jiro said. "You'll need to give me your number." "Me and Kyoka can take you out sometimes," Mina said. Misaki smiled. "I'd really like that," she said. Kirishima grinned, pulling her closer to him. "Thanks, Mina. I appreciate that," he said. "Well, of course. I always said to myself if any of you guys got a girlfriend I'd have to take her under my wing. I know what you boys are like," Mina teased him. As the table laughed and joked, Misaki found herself feeling more and more out of place. Everyone was so welcoming and warm but she didn't fit in. "Not yet. I'm just going to the bathroom," she said quietly to Kirishima. "But do you want me to get you another drink whilst you're gone?" he asked. She shrugged. "I'm okay. I'm probably gonna head soon anyway," she said. "You sure?" he asked. "Yeah. I'm quite tired," she said. "But we'll go soon," he promised. He kissed her cheek, giving her hip a small squeeze. Bakugo moved out the way for her and she scurried off to the bathroom. "So, what do you guys think?" Kirishima asked, lovingly looking after her. Mina smiled. "She's so pretty, Kirishima. And she seems really nice," Mina said. "I know, right? It was honestly love at first sight. I can't get over how someone so beautiful wants to be with me," he said, running his hand through his hair. "She seems great for you, man," Kaminari said. He smiled, looking at his beer. "I think so. I'm so happy she's moved here. It was hard being long distance, but now she's here and I'm just so excited," he said. "Ah, that's so sweet," Mina gushed. Bakugo sipped his beer, deciding to stay quiet. He couldn't get that tight feeling out of his chest. "You all right, Bakugo?" Kaminari asked. "Yeah. I'm just not really feeling it today," he said. "Long day at work?" Zero asked. "Not really. It was annoying having to make small talk all day, but it wasn't that bad," he said. Misaki came back and Kirishima nudged Bakugo to let him out of the booth. "We're gonna get going, guys. It was really good seeing you all," Kirishima said. "It was so lovely to meet you." "Thank you for being so welcoming," Misaki smiled at them. "Of course. I can't wait for us to get together." "We can go shopping," Mina squealed. Misaki laughed. "That would be great," she said. Kirishima rested his hand on the small of her back and kissed her cheek. "You got everything?" he asked her. "Yeah, I've got everything," she said. They waved to everyone as they left, Kirishima keeping his arm wrapped around her. "Ah, they're so sweet. I'm so happy for him," Mina said. "She's so hot." "Can't believe Kirishima bagged her," Kaminari whined. Bakugo wanted to be sick. He didn't pay attention to girls or friendships or anything. So why had he spent his whole day thinking about her? And now he finds out her boyfriend is Kirishima? His best friend? He didn't know what to do. His mind was swirling. Bakugo Katsuki was not one to have a thriving social life. He was never one to put too much focus on friendships or relationships. So imagine his surprise when he met Furukawa Misaki, a girl who would change his life, who was dating his best friend. Bakugo Katsuki was in a lot of trouble. Friendships. Chapter text. Bakugo Katsuki ran a hand through his hair as he shut the front door to his apartment. His new partner was his best friend's girlfriend. Well, he shouldn't get too close to her. Not something that was normally a problem for him. This would be fine. He was overthinking things. He reminded himself of Midoriya. He didn't know why he felt so frazzled. Was it because he wasn't expecting to see her? That must be it. He was fine. He was just surprised to see her out with his friends, with his best friend's arm wrapped around her. He groaned as he thought about the way her jeans accentuated her curves. She was hot. There was no denying it. Girls may not interest him that much, but he wasn't blind. She better not get in his way. He walked to his kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. At least he was on the afternoon shift tomorrow. He can just focus on his patrols. He didn't need to be too chatty with her. But shit. She looked hot in her hero costume as well. He shook his head. What was he thinking? He never normally noticed the shit. His phone began to ring and he frowned as he saw how late it was. Who would be calling him at 1 in the morning? He grabbed his phone, the number not saved. What do you want? He answered. The person on the other end tooted at him. Hello to you too. I was just wondering if you wanted to hook up, a girl replied. 𝗕𝗵𝗲. He hummed in thought. Might help him take his mind off Misaki. Not that he needed the help. Because he was not thinking of his best friend's girlfriend like that. Not at all. Whatever. You can come over. But you're not staying the night. I'm working at 12, he said. You never let me stay anyway, don't know why this would be any different. I'll be there in 15, 𝗕𝗵𝗲 said, hanging up the phone. Maybe he just needed to get some of his testosterone out. It had been a while since he had last hooked up with 𝗕𝗵𝗲. Or anyone really. He'd had a few one-night stands, but 𝗕𝗵𝗲 seemed to be the only one who stuck around. She knew there was nothing there though. It was a purely physical relationship they had. If it could even be described as a relationship. Bakugo stood up, heading to the bathroom. He quickly brushed his teeth before 𝗕𝗵𝗲 arrived. He ruffled his hair, trying to make sure it was sitting right. When his door knocked, he tried his best not to let out a groan. He didn't even know why he agreed to this. He wasn't interested in 𝗕𝗵𝗲. But she's a good distraction. He opened the door and she was quick to grab him by his top, kissing him. He pulled away, pulling her inside and shutting the door. At least get inside first. Shit, he grumbled. 𝗕𝗵𝗲 huffed at him. Romantic as ever, 𝗕𝗵𝗲 rolled her eyes. He scoffed. How much romance are you expecting this late at night? He asked her. I don't even know why I bother coming here. She huffed at him once more before kissing him again. He planted his hands on her waist and she jumped up, wrapping her legs around his torso. She gripped his hair, biting his bottom lip. He let out a groan as she slipped her tongue in his mouth. Bakugo carried her to his couch and sat down on it, having her sit on his lap. As he closed his eyes, Misaki's face flashed in his mind. He scrunched his face, trying to focus on 𝗕𝗵𝗲. As he took off her top, he pictured the floral top that Misaki was wearing. He wrapped his fingers in 𝗕𝗵𝗲's hair, but he just thought about the white hair of Misaki. Shit. This wasn't good. 𝗕𝗵𝗲 pulled back, frowning. Are you okay? She asked him. She noticed. He said. You're not getting, hard. I'm topless and grinding on you and nothing, she said. He shrugged. He knew what his problem was. The problem was that 𝗕𝗵𝗲 wasn't who he wanted to be fucking. But he couldn't exactly tell her that. I've been drinking. I don't know what to tell you, he said. As he stared at her half-naked form, he just pictured Misaki again. He couldn't help it. As he imagined her white hair hanging down, just covering her breasts from sight, he tried to repress a groan. 𝗕𝗵𝗲 felt a twitch and smirked. There we go. You up for it now? 𝗕𝗵𝗲 asked. Yeah. Just stop talking. You're annoying me, he said. Wow, thanks, she muttered. If she spoke, it took away from the illusion that it was Misaki. He shut his eyes again, Misaki's image taking over 𝗕𝗵𝗲's body. As she grinded on his lap, he groaned again. He thought about Misaki's hands on him, picturing the sweet sounds she'd make as he kissed her. He kissed along 𝗕𝗵𝗲's neck. Her breathy moans hit his ear and he couldn't help but wish she'd stay silent. She was too different to Misaki. What he pictured Misaki to be like. That's it. I'm getting there, he said. 𝗕𝗵𝗲 kissed him again, pulling his hair as she did. He reached for the button of her jeans and she tugged on his top. He pulled his top up, taking it off. As she pulled his hair again, he let out another groan. All he could see was Misaki. Come on. Get there for me. He heard Misaki coo at him in his mind. Furukawa, he groaned. They both paused. 𝗕𝗵𝗲 pulled back from him. Excuse me, she hissed. His face drained of color. There was no way he had just moaned her name. Shit. I'm sorry, he said. He ran a hand through his hair, covering his eyes with his arm. I know we're not anything official, but fuck you. Go deal with your boner by yourself, she scowled. She climbed off of him, buttoning her jeans back up and putting her top back on. I really am sorry, Bakugo said. Whatever. You're an asshole, she said. She stormed out of Bakugo's apartment and slammed his door. He rested his head in his hands, letting out a groan of frustration. This was bad. He punched his couch cushion before standing up. He threw his glass of water, glaring at it as it broke. He ran a hand through his hair and sighed. He needed to go to bed. He was drunk. That's all this was. He went to his bedroom and got changed into pajamas. He laid down in his bed and looked up at the ceiling. How could he go to work tomorrow? How could he look her in the eye? This was humiliating. This was all her fault. She had done something to him to worm herself into his brain. She was a demon. That was it. He didn't feel any sort of way about her. All she did was annoy him. He kept thinking about her. Thinking about the way she scowled at him. The way her jeans showed off her butt. The way her top showed off just the right amount of cleavage. This is a problem. A big, big problem. Misaki straightened her hair, her hero costume packed in her bag. Kirishima sat on her bed, watching her attentively as she got ready for work. I love watching you get ready. It's so fascinating, he said. She giggled, smiling to herself. I'm glad you don't find it boring, she said. I just love spending time with you. I'm so happy you're closer now, he said. Kirishima grinned lovingly at her. He was basically a lovesick puppy for her. Me too. It makes such a difference. And I'm so happy I got to meet your friends, she said. Me too. They all loved you, he told her. You think so? She asked. He nodded quickly. I know so. Out of that lot, Mina is my oldest friend. We've known each other since middle school. I'm so happy she's taken a liking to you, he said. Me too, she said. She set her hair straightener down and looked over her shoulder at Kirishima. I think I'm ready to go now, she said. Do you have everything? He asked. Yeah. Got everything here, she said. Kirishima stood up, moving closer to her. He put his hands on her shoulders, kissing her cheek. Let's get going then, he said. He held out a hand to Misaki, helping her up. He pressed a quick kiss to her lips before walking out of her apartment. She followed after him, unable to stop the smile on her face. When are you next free from work? She asked him. He held her hand and pulled a face as he tried to recall his work schedule. I'm night patrol tonight and the next couple of nights. But I'm off at the weekend, he asked. That's annoying. I'm off the next 2 days then in all weekend, she said. What shifts? He asked. Mornings, she said. Why don't you stay over on Saturday? I'll walk you to work on Sunday, he suggested. She smiled. But I'd really like that, she said. They kept walking along and Kirishima made sure to point out important parts of the city as they walked. After work on Saturday, I'll give you a proper tour. If you want, he offered. I'd love that, she smiled at him. He squeezed her hand, grinning back at her. I'll need to take you for dinner as well, he said. Ooh, there's this really good ramen place near my work. We'll need to go there, Misaki said. Yeah? How do you know? Kirishima asked. Bakugo-san took me for lunch there yesterday on our break. It was honestly the best ramen I've ever tasted, she gushed. It's cool you two work together. I'm glad he was nice to you, Kirishima said. I don't know if I'd say nice, she laughed. He laughed with her. As they approached her agency, he stopped walking, pulling her to a stop. He kissed her softly. Enjoy work. Have an amazing day. I'll try text you as much as I can, he promised. Thanks. I'll do the same. I love you, she said. I love you too, he smiled. He looked above her, waving at someone. She turned around, a soft smile appearing as she saw Bakugo. Bakugo! Hey! Kirishima called out to him. Bakugo looked up, trying not to grimace when he saw Misaki. He headed over to them, keeping his eyes on Kirishima. What's up? Kirishima asked him. Not a lot. Just got to get changed and clocked in, Bakugo yawned. Long night? You look tired, Misaki said. He narrowed his eyes. I'm fine, he said. Kirishima ran a hand through Misaki's hair before kissing her cheek. I'll see you later, okay? I love you. And it was good running into you, bro. He grinned at Bakugo. Bakugo waved his hand at him. Yeah. Whatever, he grumbled. Misaki rolled her eyes. Can't believe this guy is your best friend, she said to Kirishima. Kirishima laughed loudly. He means well. He's a great guy beneath all the aggression, he said. Bakugo scowled at the two of them. Shut up, he said. Kirishima laughed again. I should really get going. I'll text you later, he said. He kissed Misaki's cheek and waved to Bakugo as he left. Come on. We don't have all day, Bakugo snapped at her. Misaki glowered at him. What the fuck crawled up your ass, she asked him. I just had a shit night's sleep, okay? I don't normally stay out that late, he grumbled. Misaki huffed as she trailed after him. She followed him to the changing rooms, heading into the ladies as he went into the men's. She cursed under her breath as she got changed, scowl still fixed on her face. He was such an asshole. She threw her normal clothes in her bag, slamming her locker shut. As she got out of the changing room, she headed to 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻's office, ready to see what he had tasked for her today. Bakugo was already there, his arms folded. 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 nodded at her as she shut his door. Perfect. I want you two to spend some time sparring together. You need to see how the other fights so that when you take villains down together, your styles aren't too different and you get in each other's way, 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 said. Bakugo tooted. Spar against her? Look at her. She's scrawny. I want some competition, he said. Her scowl deepened. Why don't you fight me first before writing me off? She hissed at him. Stop bickering. You two are partners. You need to work together. I don't care if you're best friends or not, but you need to have teamwork, 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 scolded them. Misaki bowed her head. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, she said. It's fine. Just bicker on your own time. When you're on the clock and on the streets, you need to compromise, he said. Misaki nodded her head. Sorry, Bakugo muttered. Train until your break. You can train individually before you spar, 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝐻 said. The two pro-heroes nodded, leaving his office. Misaki scowled at her shoes as she walked along the hallways. Bakugo opened up the gym and she stalked in behind him. Do you want to spar or train first? He asked. Train, she said. He narrowed his eyes at her curt response. Fine. Just don't get in my way, he said. She scowled at the back of his head as she went over to the weights. She cursed to herself as she loaded up the weights, muttering insults about Bakugo. Bakugo glared at the weights in his hands as he heard her. Quit your bitching, he snapped at her. Me. You've been in an awful mood all morning. I don't know what your problem is, but leave me out of it, she shot back. You know what? Fuck training. Fight me right now, he demanded. Are you insane? She asked. Bakugo clenched his fists. He needed to be angry at her. Angry at her for making him lose his head last night. For making him think of her. What? Are you too scared? He taunted her. Before he knew what had happened, Misaki lunged towards him, swinging her fist towards him. He just managed to jump out of a crazed grin on his face. Oh hell yeah, he said. He charged towards her, lighting up an explosion in his palm. Misaki jumped into the air, creating a wall in front of her. She managed to block off his attack, busting through the dust to wrap her ankles around his neck. She spun through the air, crashing him into the ground. He let out a grunt as his chest made impact with the floor. We need to go to the sparring room. Genius will be pissed if we wreck his gym, Bakugo muttered. She clicked her tongue. She said. Bakugo stood up, brushing himself off. That move was cool, he admitted. Shut up, she said. He rolled his eyes. Even when he was trying to be nice, she was a bitch to him. Whatever. Suits him. Misaki followed him into the sparring room, grinning at the large, empty space. Perfect. But don't think I'm going to go easy on you because you're a girl, he warned. She rolled her eyes. I'd kick your ass if you did, she said. They both got into a fighting stance, staring at each other head-on. Bakugo made the first move, flying towards her. Misaki shot down, sliding under his legs as he flew over her. Start a spear, she shouted. A spear appeared in her hand and she threw it towards him. It scraped his shoulder as he jumped out of the way, and he let out a hiss. He ran towards her again, shooting explosions at her. 𝗵𝗃𝗍 jumped out of the way, creating a wall of dust to block his attacks. This time he was prepared for her as she came hurtling through it. He grabbed her ankle, slamming her onto the ground. She let out a groan as she hit the ground. She was quick to tighten her ankles around his wrist, bringing him down with her. His eyes widened in surprise as he landed on his back. 𝗵𝗃𝗍 climbed on top of him, pinning him down. "Is that all you've got?" she mocked him. His heart was beating at the position they were in. He threw her off of him, making her go hurtling back. Bakugo threw an explosion at her, making the floor crumble around her. "You are the worst," she complained. She shot some dust at him and he groaned as it went in his eyes. "Ah," he exclaimed, rubbing them. She flicked more dust at him and he scowled at her. "Quit it," he barked at her. "Afraid of some dust?" she asked. "No. It's just annoying as hell," he said. 𝗵𝗃𝗍 brought herself to her feet, dusting herself off. "Get up." "I'm not done," she said. He smirked. "Is that so?" he asked. He stood up, setting off explosions in his hands. 𝗵𝗃𝗍 ran towards him again, managing to punch him in the stomach. He landed a kick on her back and she grunted in surprise. She swung back to her feet, throwing more dust at him. She grabbed him by the neck again, throwing him down. Bakugo set off an explosion, throwing her back. She let out a cry as she hit the floor. Bakugo stared at her, his eyes widening as she didn't move. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked her. He scrambled to his feet, moving towards her. She let out a small whimper as she clutched her arm to her chest. "You burned me, you absolute bastard," she cursed at him. "Shit. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to actually hurt you," he said. She moved her arm and he grimaced at what he saw. He'd burned a hole in her suit, making it stick to the burn on her arm. "You're a prick," she said. "I know. I'm sorry. Let me take you to our infirmary," he said. She glared at him but accepted his extended hand to help her up. As he pulled her up, she swung her uninjured arm back, punching him in the chest. "Fuck," he groaned. "Now we're even," she said. "You hit hard," he said. "I told you not to underestimate me," she reminded him. "I know. I'm sorry," he said. 𝗵𝗃𝗍 clutched her arm as she let Bakugo lead the way to the infirmary. "I didn't take you to be so apologetic," she said. "I can admit when I'm wrong. But don't get used to it," he tooted at her. She sighed as she trailed along behind him. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yeah. It just stings like a bitch," she said. Bakugo got her into the infirmary and ran a hand through his hair. This shit was hard. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 paced up and down his office as Bakugo stood in the middle of it. He kept his head down as 𝗧𝗵𝗲 glared at him. "Do you have any idea how reckless you've been?" 𝗧𝗵𝗲 scolded him. "I know. It was stupid of me," he said. "Stupid? It was completely out of line. I asked you to spar, not to try kill each other." 𝗧𝗵𝗲 chastised him. "I didn't mean to go so hard. We were arguing and then it just got out of hand," Bakugo said. "I do not care for your petty squabbles. You're both adults and I expect you to act like one," 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said. "It wasn't just me. She fought dirty as well." Bakugo tried to protest. "I don't care. Starlight is an amazing pro hero. We're very lucky to have her in our agency. I'll not have you run her off," 𝗧𝗵𝗲 warned him. Bakugo clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to argue back. He clicked his tongue, taking a deep breath. "I understand," Bakugo said. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 sighed, placing his palm against his forehead. "You're dismissed. Go on your break. But see if Starlight is okay first. Then take it with her," he said. Bakugo nodded, leaving his superior's office. He walked down the hallway, running a hand through his hair. He fucked up. Kirishima was going to be so angry at him. He headed down to the infirmary and saw Misaki sat on the bed, looking bored as she got her arm treated. He knocked on the door and she scowled as she saw him through the glass. He opened the door anyway, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "How you feeling?" he asked her. "Fine," she said, eyes narrowed at him. He rubbed his arm, trying not to appear as awkward as he felt. "Good. Are you nearly done in here?" he asked. "Yeah," she replied. The one-word answers were killing him. Gina said we should go on a break now. Once you're done in here, he said. You don't have to wait for me, she said. He sighed. Let me buy you dinner, he said. She narrowed her eyes at him. Why, she asked. God, she frustrated him to no end. Because I did a dick move. I'm trying to be nice here, he snapped. She rolled her eyes. Oh yeah. You're being delightful, she said. The nurse awkwardly looked between them before tying the wrap on her arm. That's you done, Starlight. We managed to get it so it won't scar, she said. Misaki smiled at the nurse. Thank you. I appreciate that, she said. She jumped down from the table and looked up at Bakugo. Do you fancy the ramen place again? Or do you have any other suggestions? She asked. There's a really good barbecue place nearby, he said, scratching the back of his neck. Let's go then, she said. She followed him out of the infirmary and he tried to swallow the lump in his throat. As they walked out of the agency, he kept a couple paces ahead of her. He didn't want to look at her. He felt guilty. It wasn't a feeling he was used to. Misaki pulled out her phone, seeing missed texts from Kirishima. How's your day going? I hope it's going amazing. Ijiro, your dumbass friend burned my arm during a fight. I'm making him get me dinner though. Misaki. She attached a photo of her wrapped-up arm and put her phone back in her pocket. Bakugo looked behind him, making sure she was still following him. It's just round this corner, he said to her. She gave him a curt nod, lips pressed in a thin line. He grimaced. He'd fucked up. Massively. He stopped in front of the restaurant and held the door open for her. They got seated and he held the menu in front of his face, clearing his throat. Have you been to one of these restaurants before? He asked. No, she said. It's quite good. You order what meat and what coating you want it in and then you get to cook it on this bit in front of us, he said. Seems fun, she said. He moved his menu down and looked at her properly. I really am sorry. I was pissed off this morning and I was taking it out on everyone. I didn't mean to hurt you like that, he said. You're fine. I know it was an accident, she said. He scrunched his eyebrows together. Then why have you been making me feel like shit? He demanded. To his surprise, she laughed. She actually laughed. How else was I going to get a free meal out of you? She teased him. He scowled at her. Oh, you're a bitch, he said. And you're an asshole, she retorted. He was stumped. She wasn't wrong. He ended up laughing as well. She had outwitted him. They placed their orders with the waiter and she drummed her fingers on the table. You're really strong. Your moveset is impressive, she said. He smirked. I know, he said. I'd hate to be someone you were actually trying to hurt, she said. Yeah. I can get quite rough. But I'm just passionate about what I do. I need to be the best. And I'm not afraid to step on people to get there, he said. Wow. Very honest of you, she said. He shrugged. There's no point in hiding it. You're a pretty good fighter as well. That leg move you do? I've never seen someone do that before, he said. She giggled slightly, covering her mouth as she did so. Her laugh was like music to his ears. He wanted to make her laugh more. This is so embarrassing. But I stole that move. I used to love professional wrestling when I was younger. There was one in particular who I was just obsessed with. Her name was Winnie Ryder. The way she would fly through the air was just beautiful. The move is called a Hurricane Rana, she told him. He smiled as she opened up to him. He could feel his chest getting tight again as he looked at her. Not embarrassing. We all have stuff we take inspiration from, he said. Most people just laugh when I tell them I used to like wrestling, she admitted. Well, fuck them. Who gives a fuck about what some fucking extras think, he asked. Misaki repressed a snort as she laughed. Extras? She questioned. Yeah. Everyone who isn't important is an extra, he explained. She shook her head. You're terrible, she said. Their food was brought out and he was quick to grab his chopsticks. I'm starving, he said. She did the same as him, nodding in agreement. Me too. That fight took a lot out of me, she said. Yeah. Me too. I've not had to use that much energy in a fight for ages, he said. Consider me flattered, she said. You should be. Not many people can keep up with me. And you hit pretty hard as well, he said. She smirked. I know. I had an older brother who I used to train with. So he used to wrestle with me. Taught me nearly everything I know, she said. Bakugo paused as he moved his meat over the grill. That's cool you had someone to train with. I'm an only child, he told her. She smiled sadly. You missed out. Kyoshi was the best. I was very lucky to have him as a big brother. But he died a couple years ago now, she said softly. Bakugo stiffened in his seat. I'm really sorry to hear that, he said. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought it up. It's so depressing, she said. No, you're fine. We're partners. You can tell me whatever, he said. She smiled warmly at him and his heart skipped a beat. He wanted to kick himself. I appreciate that. Thank you, she said. Whatever. Just don't get too mushy on me, he said. He shoved some food in his mouth, wanting to hide his embarrassment. She rolled her eyes. Whatever. You say that as if you've not been kissing my ass since you hurt me, she said. He scowled. I was trying to be nice, he said. You're still a dumbass. Just don't hit so hard next time, she said. No promises, he muttered. God, she infuriated him. She narrowed her eyes at him. I won't hold back next time, she warned him. He scoffed. Hold back. As if you were holding back. You better not have been, he said. Who knows? Maybe I was trying not to put you in the infirmary, she said. He glared at her. Fucking try it. I'm way stronger and faster than you, he bragged. Who got the first pin, she asked. Me. I did, he said. No way. I totally pinned you first, she argued. He shook his head. You are unbelievable. We'll need a rematch, he said. Let's fight with no quirks. See who's really the toughest, she challenged him. He smirked widely. You're insane, he said. Are you scared? She cooed at him, mocking him. Bakugo's eyes widened ever so slightly as he felt his dick twitch. He couldn't get hard with Cammy grinding on him, but Misaki taking him down a peg was doing it? He was sick. Fuck no. I'm not scared of anything, he said. Then fight me after dinner. We can see who's the strongest, she said. What about your arm? He asked. Misaki stretched her arm out, flexing it. It's all fine now. It just needs to stay wrapped for a bit, she said. I'll need to speak to Genist. He was pretty pissed off at me, he said. Was he actually? She asked. Bakugo nodded. Yeah. Asked me to not run you off, he said. Misaki laughed again. As if you could. I'm not scared of you, she said. Well, I'm glad. It's good having someone who can keep up with me. Too many of the extras there are scared of me, he said. You're a big kitten. You're not as big and mean as you make yourself out to be, she said. Hey, I'm not a damn kitten, he snapped at her. She cooked more meat, ignoring his outburst. Her phone vibrated in her pocket and she pulled it out to look at it. Looks nasty. Are you okay? Is the dinner good? Ijiro. Smile, she said to Bakugo. He flipped off the camera as she took a picture of him and the food. Yeah, I'm fine. Company could use some work, but the food is great though. Misaki. Bakugo snatched her phone out of her hand as she sent the picture to Kirishima. He glared at it. I've been great company, he said. She laughed, taking her phone back. You're not as bad as you want people to think you are. But I'm sure he'll have something to say to you, she said. He groaned. I can't deal with another lecture from him, he said. You get them a lot? She asked. Like you wouldn't believe, he said. She smiled at him, laughing to herself again. Bakugo just stared at her, unable to take his eyes off of her. He was fucked. Misaki had worked at Best Jeanist's agency for 2 weeks now. She had quickly gotten the hang of how he ran his agency, something him and Bakugo were very impressed by. She acted as if she had worked there for years, adapting well to the systems and expectations that Best Jeanist had in place. Her and Bakugo had learned to coexist peacefully, their bickering having died down to more playful banter and teasing. Best Jeanist was relieved at the change, no longer worried that his two heroes would kill each other on patrol. They were currently in Bakugo's office, working on reports from their last crime bust. Bakugo groaned, cracking his neck. I don't get how you like this shit, he grumbled. Misaki laughed. I find it therapeutic. I like routine and having things in order. Reports never really change, you know? It's comforting, she said. That's so lame, he tooted. She flipped him off before continuing to type away on her laptop. Can't wait for lunch. I am starving, she said. Bakugo nodded in agreement. Tell me about it. Did you bring something in or you going out? He asked. She shrugged. I brought in a bento box but I don't know if I fancy it now, she said. Don't be wasteful, he scolded her. She rolled her eyes. How about we get something to bring in and we split that and my bento box? She suggested. Depends. What did you make? He asked. Teriyaki chicken, rice, some seaweed, pickled carrot and cabbage, she said. Sure. It better not be disgusting, he warned. She clicked her tongue, scowling. I'll have you know, I'm an excellent cook, she said. I'll be the judge of that. If it's shit, I'll need to come to your place and teach you how to cook, he said. She pouted. 𝐒𝐩�ou𝐴 likes my cooking, she muttered. Not helping your case. He's got shitty taste. Look at his hair, Bakugo pointed out. I happen to love his hair, she defended him. You have shitty taste too. This food will be crap, he said. She gathered some dust, turning it into a small rock and flicked it at him, and he groaned as it hit him in the cheek. Piss off, he complained. Just quit whining and finish your reports. Ginest said we can't go on lunch until they're done, she said. Yeah. I've only got this one left to finish, he said. Misaki span around in her chair, resting her hands behind her head. Well, I finished before you. So dinner's on you, she said. What? I always buy us lunch. It's your turn, you damn brat, he snapped at her. She laughed, shaking her head. Not my fault you always lose to me, she teased him. He kissed his teeth, sending a glare her way. Just you wait till Ginest lets us have our rematch. Then you'll see what's it like to be a loser, he said. She rolled her eyes. I still maintain that I won that fight, she said. You did not. I was obviously the winner, he shouted. Misaki laughed as she covered her ears. You're going to make me deaf if you keep yelling, she said. If only I could make you mute, he scowled at her. Ah, you know you'd be bored if I wasn't around, she cooed. Bakugo stayed silent, not wanting to admit to either her or himself that she was right. In the 2 weeks she had worked with him, Bakugo had found himself thinking of her more and more when he was alone. He tried to think of other girls, even be with other girls, but nothing worked. He was starting to feel emasculated by the amount of failed one-night stands he'd had just in these 2 weeks. It was embarrassing. He finished his report and closed his laptop screen. I'm done. Let's go, he said. He stood up, stretching his arms as he did so. Misaki was quick to her feet, grabbing her jacket. She followed him out of the office and smiled as the breeze hit her skin. I love this time of year, she said. Me too. My quirk works so much better in the warmer weather, Bakugo said. Misaki rolled her eyes. Is thinking of things in relation to your quirk or strength the only thing you can do? I love this time of year because it's so pretty. Not because of how strong I get, she said. Itudit. Being the best is the only thing I'm concerned about, he said. Oh, believe me. I know, she said. What makes this time of year so beautiful to you anyway? He asked. She gestured around herself. Look at it. The cherry blossoms, the birds, the way the sun streams through the clouds. It's so amazing, she said. He looked at where she was gesturing and gave a small grunt. Suppose, he muttered. You're such a downer, she chastised him. Shut up, he glared at her. Do you have anything planned for your birthday tomorrow? Misaki asked, wanting the subject changed. He shrugged. Think the guys were wanting to meet up for drinks. Raccoon Eyes was gonna be coming as well if you want to join, he said. His eyes widened as he realized what he said and he cursed himself. Why did he invite her? Raccoon Eyes? Misaki questioned, tilting her head. Mina, he elaborated. Misaki let out a small gasp. You're terrible, she scolded him. He pushed open a convenience store door and held it open for her. She knows it's all in good fun, he said. You're still a dick, Misaki said. Ah, quit your bitching, he said. They walked through the shop, looking at the snacks, and Misaki hummed in thought. I don't know what I want, she said. Let me pick then, he said. No way. What if you pick something crap, she asked. He glared at her. I told you I don't have crap tastes, he said. You're so arrogant, she huffed. Am I arrogant or am I right? He countered. He picked up some protein bars and a mixed nut bag. Misaki reached for some lentil crisps and she grabbed a box of Pocky. You done? He asked. Yeah. I just need to grab a drink, she said. She walked to the fridges, picking out a cola. Do you want anything? She asked. Just a bottle of water, he replied. She got his water and headed back to him. I'll get this. Since you do always pay, she said. You made the food. This can be my contribution, Bakugo said. He didn't know why, but he loved paying for her. Doing a nice thing for her. Just anything to try get in her good books. Don't need to. I feel like you always pay for me, she said. Because you're a mooch, he said. She puffed her cheeks out, scowling at him. I don't know why I try being nice to you, she muttered. This is you being nice? He scoffed. Bakugo bought their snacks and they began their walk back to the agency together. So what type of things do you like? Misaki asked. Why? He asked. Well, I need to get you a birthday present, she said, rolling her eyes as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. His heart skipped a beat and he shook his head. Don't bother with that shit, he said. Why not? It's your birthday. Therefore you get a birthday present, she said. I don't care about that shit. People normally get me useless shit anyway, Bakugo said. So ungrateful, she scolded him. He rolled his eyes. What's there to be grateful about? He asked. People have gone out of their way to try find something you like, she said. But I never do. Why should I be grateful that people don't know me by now? He asked. She frowned. Have you even tried letting them in? To know what you do and don't like? Misaki questioned. What's the use? I don't need people close to me. I just need teammates, he said. Misaki sighed. That's really sad, Misaki said. He didn't say anything as they continued walking. Misaki glanced up at him but didn't probe. When they reached the agency, Bakugo grabbed the door, not holding it open for her this time. She was quick to grab it before it hit her in the face. She scowled at the back of his head as she followed after him. They got to his office and he was still quiet. She pulled out her bento box and her chopsticks and he broke the pair that he got from the store. As she opened it up, he eyed it cautiously. Looks good, he said. So you're speaking to me again? She asked. He rolled his eyes. Shut up. I just paid you a compliment, he said. I don't get you. You're so hot and cold, she said. You get on my nerves. You ask a lot of stupid shit, he shrugged. She scowled at him. I honestly don't know how anyone puts up with you. You're rude, arrogant, and just so insufferable, she said. She stood up, pushing her chair back. Where are you going? He asked. I just want to be by myself for a bit, she said. Come on. Don't be like this, he groaned. She glared at him before shutting his office door. Shit, he cursed. As normal, he fucked everything up. Misaki slammed her apartment door shut, throwing off her jacket. He was so infuriating. Every single thing she did seemed to be wrong. She was sick of it. Every time she thought she was actually getting somewhere with him, he made her take 5 steps back. She sighed. Maybe they weren't meant to be friends. Which sucked. When he wasn't being a complete ass, he was pretty funny. And he was Ijiro's best friend. She sat on her couch and hugged her knees. This sucked. He sucked. She placed her face against her knees and let out a frustrated groan. She hated how much she let him get to her. She missed her old town. She missed her friends Tatame and Itajiro. She hadn't wanted to leave them behind. But she knew it was best for her and Ijiro. But she was so lonely here. Ijiro always seemed to be on an opposite schedule to her and she hadn't really made any friends yet. She wanted to go home. Was moving here a mistake? She picked up her phone and called Tatame, needing a familiar voice. She held the phone to her ear as the phone rang and rang. Sorry. Tatame's a bit busy at the minute, an all too familiar voice answered her. Shindo? Misaki exclaimed. Give me that. She heard Tatame snap in the background. What the fuck? Misaki asked. Shit. Misaki. Hi. I can explain, Tatame said. I'm waiting, Misaki glowered at her screen. Yo's just here hanging out. We have a mission to go on soon since he's just joined the agency. We're just going over tactics, Tatame stammered out. Misaki rolled her eyes. I'm out of town for a month and you go straight to my ex? Unbelievable. Forget I called. Enjoy your tactics, she said. Misaki hung up and tossed her phone across her couch. This was a mess. Her best friend and her ex-boyfriend. Good. It was such a cliché. She felt so stupid. She balled her hands into fists and rested them against her face. She couldn't believe this. This sucked. Everything fucking sucked. Moving here sucked. Tatami sucked. Bakugo sucked. She let out another groan before sitting up and resting her hands on her knees. She needed out of this apartment. She grabbed her phone and her jacket before heading out of her apartment. She huffed as she shoved her hands in her pockets. She didn't know where she was going. She just wanted to be away from her own thoughts. She was so angry. So upset. She didn't know who she could talk to. She knew it was silly to be upset over 𝗬𝗲𝗄 spending time with Shindo. They had broken up 2 years ago, but he was so goddamn awful to her. Something that 𝗬𝗲𝗄 knew about. She still had insecurities left over from what he did to her. Still had moments of panic. She felt betrayed. She sighed as she continued to walk the streets, deciding that shopping will help her. Was it a bad habit? Maybe. But retail therapy always helped her. She saw a clothes shop and pushed open the door, the air conditioning hitting her in the face. She went straight to the accessory section, trawling through the different bracelets they had. 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. Misaki turned around and threw on a fake smile when she saw Mina waving excitedly to her. Mina quickly joined her, giving her a tight hug. Misaki's eyes widened at the contact but hugged her back. How are you? I've not seen you since the bar. Mina asked. I'm okay. I've just been working hard, you know? How about you? Misaki asked. Me too. It's been exhausting. Are you going to Bakugo's birthday tomorrow? Mina asked her. Misaki shrugged. I don't know. He told me about it earlier but I don't know if he really wants me there, she said. Boo. Don't let his grumpy ass stop you. If you ask him, he'll say he doesn't want any of us there but I know he appreciates it really, Mina said. Maybe. I'll need to see how I feel after work tomorrow, Misaki said. Mina smiled at her and placed a hand on her arm. I really think you should come. It'd be good for you to meet more of the girls. Kiri just sees the guys around mostly and I know that every girl needs a good bunch of girlfriends, Mina said. Misaki laughed bitterly. Are you a mind reader? I just fell out with my best friend from home, Misaki told her. Oh no. Were you busy just now? You can tell me all about it or you can just distract yourself. Why don't we shop and get some boba? Mina suggested. Misaki smiled warmly at her. I would love that, Misaki said. Mina grabbed a hold of her arm and pulled her out of the shop. I know the best boba place. We'll do that first so you can get everything off your chest. I can tell you need to talk to someone. You're all tense, Mina said. Seriously. Are you a mind reader? Misaki asked. Mina laughed. Oh. I just have a sixth sense for this stuff. I'm like the ultimate girl's girl, Mina said. Mina led her down the street, stopping in front of a cafe. It was a cute, modern cafe with lots of bright lights. Very Mina. Mina brought her inside and they sat at a booth by the window. Misaki picked up a menu and began to scan through it. I am starving. I might get a dessert as well, Mina said. Misaki's stomach rumbled and she nodded. Dessert sounds amazing, Misaki agreed. But I know what I'm getting. Do you know what you want? I'll order it for us, Mina said. Are you sure? Misaki asked. Of course I am, Mina said. Thanks. You're the best, Misaki said. She told Mina her order and Mina was quick to put it in. She sat back down and rested her head in between her hands. So what's got you so down in the dumps? Mina asked. Misaki sighed. It's so dumb. And I feel bad even feeling upset by it, she started. But, Mina pressed. My best friend from home is with my ex right now. I haven't even been gone a full month and she's already with him. Me and him were together for nearly 3 years. He was awful. And she knows how awful he was. And she's just gone straight to him. Misaki ranted. That's horrible. Did she even tell you about this? Mina asked. Oh. I tried to phone her because I was feeling a bit homesick and my ex answered the phone, Misaki said. That's so shitty of them. I'm sorry, Mina said. I feel so stupid for being upset about it. It's been 2 years since we broke up and I'm in such a good relationship with 𝐒𝐩𝐳𝐸. I don't even know why I'm feeling this way, she said. You're not stupid. You said he was awful. It makes sense to be upset that your friend would spend time with him, Mina validated her. The waiter brought over their order and both girls thanked him. Sipping her drink, Misaki let out a big sigh. Thanks Ishido-chan. I really needed this, Misaki said. It's what friends are for, right? Mina smiled at her. Misaki felt her chest tighten. Friends? She'd finally made a friend here. You're right. Can't believe I finally have my first friend here, Misaki laughed. Mina laughed as well. I'm honored. You wouldn't consider Bakugo your first friend? Mina asked. No way. I don't even think he likes me most of the time. He's so hot and cold with me. He gives me a headache, Misaki said. Yeah, he's like that. You don't have to be friends with him if you don't want to, but he really does mean well. He's just got a unique way of showing it, Mina said. I know 𝐒𝐻𝐳 wouldn't be friends with him if he didn't think he was a good person. And I'm not saying he's a bad person. I just don't get him at all. 1 minute he's fine with me and the next he's shutting me out and making me feel like shit for even speaking to him, Misaki frowned. Mina reached over and squeezed her hand. I really feel like you got the short end of the stick being given him as your partner. He'll do absolutely anything for anyone, but teamwork has never been his strong point. He's gotten a lot better since our first year of school, but he could still use some work, Mina said. I just don't even know how to feel about him. It's so hard working with him, Misaki complained. Oh, I know. Believe me, I know. He just takes a while to warm up to people. I think you should come tomorrow. He wouldn't have mentioned it if he didn't want you there, Mina said. You think so? Misaki asked. Mina nodded. I know so. He's so stubborn. You can't make him do anything he doesn't want to, Mina said. You're right. I'll speak to 𝐒𝐻𝐳. But I think I'll go, Misaki smiled. You should. The gang really like you. They'll be happy to see you, Mina told her. Okay, I'm relieved. I was worried I hadn't made the best first impression, Misaki said. Mina shook her head. Girl, don't worry so much. Kiri loves you and you make him so happy. You're pretty great, so stop doubting yourself, Mina chastised her. Misaki felt her heart swell. Maybe this hadn't been a mistake. Saki, how was work? Kirishima asked her, holding her tightly. She hugged him back, resting her head against his chest. Work was sucky. There were so many annoying small-time crooks out today. All thinking they were ballsier than they were, you know? Misaki sighed. They're often worse than the big times. So persistent. Did they hurt you? Kirishima asked. She shrugged. They tried. Got a couple punches in my ribs but nothing I can't handle, she said. You feel up for going out? Kirishima asked her. I think so. I saw Ishido-chan yesterday and she said she really wanted me to come. She said. You did? He asked. She nodded. Yeah. She's really great, 𝐒𝐻𝐳. I had a falling out with Tatame, so I went out for a walk to clear my head and ran into her, so we got boba and shopped, Misaki said. I'm sorry to hear about Tatame. I'm sure you guys will make up soon though, he said. Misaki shrugged. I don't know if I want to. Not for a while at least. But we should get ready. I want to shower and sort my ribs before we go out, she said. Let me help, Kirishima said. She squeezed him tighter, resting her head against his shoulder. She said. I like taking care of you, Saki. And if you want to talk to me about what happened with Tatame, you know I'm here, right? He said. I know. It's just dumb. I feel bad for even being upset, she admitted. He pulled back, holding onto her arms. I bet whatever it isn't dumb. But you don't need to talk about it if you don't want to, he said. She smiled up at him and gave him a small kiss. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. We've got to get in the party mood, she said. He grinned and kissed her again. You're right. Now go shower. Mina told me to tell you she's wearing a dress and 𝐒𝐻𝐳 is wearing a skirt, he said. Misaki laughed. But noted, she said. She pulled him into a quick hug again, sighing contently. I love you, 𝐒𝐻𝐳. So much, she said. I love you, Saki. More than anything, he said. He kissed the side of her head before letting go of her. Misaki pulled away from him and he ruffled her hair. You are so lucky I hadn't styled it yet, she said, her eyes narrowed at him. He laughed loudly. Yeah. Now go get ready, he said. She flipped him off before heading to her bathroom. She thought about the book she had bought for Bakugo as she turned her shower on. When shopping with Mina, she had come across a signed copy of Nakahara's first book, Corruption in Waiting. She didn't remember him having it on his bookshelf in his office, and she knew he was a fan of his work. Despite his apparent disapproval for gifts, she couldn't help but buy it for him. She stepped in the shower, hissing as the hot water hit her ribs. She could already see the bruising taking place. This was a pain. When she was done, she wrapped herself in a towel before trying to find her ointment. 𝐈𝐺𝐻, she called for him. He opened the bathroom door, blushing slightly when he saw she was in just a towel. Oh, he stammered. Misaki rolled her eyes. It's nothing new, she said. I know. But that's different. Can you not put some pants on first? He asked, averting her eyes. She huffed but walked out of the bathroom. She put on the shimmery, black skirt she was planning to wear and her bra before going back to the bathroom. Better? She asked. He nodded. Yeah, he said. I don't see what the big deal is. You've seen me naked before, she said. I know. But that's when we're, doing it. It's embarrassing when it's just causal, he said. She frowned as he began to apply the ointment on her ribs. You think my body is embarrassing? She asked. No. I didn't mean it like that. Just, I don't know. It's intimate. We shouldn't just be naked all the time, he said. Well, it's hard not to take it like that, she said. I phrased it badly. I obviously don't think your body is embarrassing, he said. Misaki hugged her chest once he was finished with the ointment and looked away from him. I don't know if I should go tonight. I don't think I'm in the right headspace, she mumbled. Asaki, come on. I didn't mean it, he said, running his hand through his hair. I just want to stay home. I had a sucky day at work. I feel really self-conscious. I don't really know anyone apart from Bakugo-san and Ishido-chan. I just don't know, she said. Kirishima placed his hands on her shoulders and hung his head. I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it like that. It's not like I'm embarrassed of you. I just get shy about that stuff. Even on the TV and stuff, he said. Misaki still refused to look at him. But we've been together for a year now, she said. I know. I'll work on it, he said. Her bottom lip wobbled as her insecurities continued to hit the surface. Do you not want to see me naked? Do you not think I'm pretty? She asked. No. No, I want to see you naked. Yes, I think you're pretty. I think you're beautiful, Saki. I mean it, he promised. He moved his hand to tilt her chin towards him. He cupped her cheek and ran his thumb up and down it. I love you, Saki. I'm really sorry, he said. You mean it? She asked. He nodded. With everything, he said. She sighed, hugging him. Sorry for being dumb, she said. He hugged her back, resting his head on her shoulder. You're not being dumb. I was the dumb one. Do you want me to cancel and stay home with you? He asked. You can't cancel. He's your best friend. I'll be okay to come. I was just having a moment, she said. You sure? I don't want you to feel like you have to, he said. No, it'll be fun. Besides, I want to see Ishido-chan, she said. He pulled back from her, kissing her softly. I'm so lucky to have you, he smiled at her. You're so soppy. Now I need to finish getting ready, she said. He kissed her once more before letting her go. But let's go get ready, he said. He held her hand, leading her out of the bathroom. They headed to her bedroom and she sat at her vanity. How should I do my hair? She asked. I don't know. How do you like it? He asked. I like it curled, but it takes so much effort. I might just stick it up, she sighed. She started her makeup, wanting just an easy look. She started with her foundation, moving on to a quick eyeshadow look. She penciled in her eyebrows before curling her eyelashes. The guys are already on their way to the bar, Kirishima said, looking at his phone. But I won't take too much longer, she said. She applied her mascara and lipstick before going to her clothes drawers. She picked out her red corset top, chucking it on before turning to him. Ready, she said, tying her up. Are you not wearing a jacket? He asked. She shrugged. I wasn't planning to. It's really warm out, she said. But your outfit is a bit, he trailed off. She narrowed her eyes. A bit what? She asked. You know, revealing? Sure, he said. She scowled. I dress like this all the time. You've never said anything before, she said. That's when it was just us or with your friends, he said, rubbing the back of the neck. Wow. So you are embarrassed of me, she accused. No. I just don't want my friends perving on you, he protested. Fine. I'll wear a jacket. Happy, she glared. I didn't mean it like that, he said. Then how did you mean it? She asked him. I don't know. I just shit. You know I'm not good at phrasing stuff, he said. Whatever. Let's just go, she said. Are you okay? He asked. I'm fine, she said. Kirishima gulped, nodding his head. He said. He called them a taxi as she put on her shoes and she grabbed her oversized denim jacket. She wrapped it around herself as she tried not to let her insecurities ruin her night. Ever since she had heard Shindo's voice the day before, every horrible word he'd said to her had come running back to the surface from the box in her head. She had locked them in. Kirishima looked at his phone again before looking up at her. The taxi is here, he said. She said. He reached for her hand, giving it a small squeeze. Misaki locked her front door, throwing her keys in her bag before following him to the taxi. She stared out the window as Kirishima gave the address to the bar and the driver began to drive off. She drummed her fingers against the car seat, trying to shake off her mood before she saw the others. She couldn't ruin Bakugo's night with her bullshit. Kirishima reached for her hand on the seat and ran his thumb over her knuckles. Saki, he said. Yeah, she answered. Are we okay? He asked. Yeah, she sighed. The taxi pulled over outside the bar and Kirishima paid as Misaki got out the taxi. She pulled her skirt down, holding her jacket over her chest as she tried to feel normal. Come on, he said. He held her hand as they walked into the bar. Mina was quick to wave them over and Misaki plastered a fake smile on her face. Furukawa-chan. Kirishima. Hey. Mina called to them. She stood up, hugging them both as they got to the table. Hey. You look amazing, Misaki said to her. Me. What about you? You're smoking hot, Mina said. Misaki put another fake smile on as she glanced at Kirishima. I'm gonna get us a drink. What do you want? She asked him. Can I just have a pint of beer? Take my card, he said. He handed her his wallet and she shot him a small smile before heading to the bar. She sighed as she got to the bar and waited for her turn. She shouldn't have come. You made it. I didn't think you'd come. Misaki looked up, not even realizing that Bakugo had stood next to her. Of course. Happy birthday, Bakugo-san, she said, smiling at him. Thanks. I thought after work the past couple days you'd have skipped it. I'm glad you're here, he said. Her eyes widened slightly. How much have you had to drink? She teased him. He rolled his eyes. Only a couple pints, he said. Well, I'm happy you seem to be having a good time. Did you get any crappy gifts then? She asked him. Yeah. I did. I could tell they tried, he admitted. She smiled as they got closer to the bar. Older and wiser already, I see, she said. What are you drinking? He asked. No way. It's your birthday. I'm buying. What do you want? She asked. He smiled at her. I'll take a pint of beer, he said. Misaki ordered her drinks, passing the pint over to Bakugo. Weirdly, she found herself more at ease with him. Bakugo took a sip of his pint, looking at her properly for the first time. You look amazing tonight, by the way. But why are you wearing that jacket? It's so hot in here, he said. She blushed as they moved back to the table. My top was a bit revealing. So I decided to wear a jacket over top since I didn't have time to change, she lied. Who cares if it's revealing? You look hot as shit, he said. Her cheeks flushed. But you are drunker than I thought, she laughed. He shrugged. So what? It's true, he said. They got back to the group and Misaki sat next to Kirishima, handing him his pint. There you are, Bakugo bro. Happy birthday. Kirishima grinned at him. He put his arm around Misaki's shoulders, pulling her closer to him. Thanks, man, Bakugo said. Misaki found herself looking at Bakugo, a smile tugging on her lips. She shuffled awkwardly as the heat of the bar got to her. She clutched her jacket closer to her and Bakugo narrowed his eyes. Why wasn't she taking it off? Chapter text. You okay, Saki? Kirishima whispered to her. She put on a strained smile, nodding. The heat of the bar was getting to her and the noise was becoming overwhelming. I'm fine. I'm gonna grab some air and then I'm gonna get another drink. Do you want anything? She asked. Just another pint please, he said. He kissed her cheek before she slid out of the booth and she gave him another strained smile. She didn't notice Bakugo's eyes narrow at her as she stepped away from the table. She wanted to go home. She was regretting this. Having that stupid fight with Kirishima before they came out had just ruined her mood completely. She stood outside of the bar, leaning against the wall. Misaki placed her head in her hands, trying to take deep breaths to steady herself. Her anxiety was at an all-time high. She felt sick. She was too warm. She was overwhelmed. She reached into her purse, pulling out a cigarette. Her hands shook as she tried to light it, making her mutter a curse. Fuck are you doing with that? Misaki looked up, seeing Bakugo staring at her with his arms folded. I'm going to smoke it. Next question, she said. Put it away. You don't need that shit, he said. He moved closer to her and she sighed, ignoring him. She lit her cigarette, inhaling the nicotine. May not need it. But I want it, she exhaled. Does Kirishima know you smoke? He asked her. She rolled her eyes. Is he my dad now? She retorted. He stood next to her, wrinkling his nose as she exhaled the smoke. What's up with you tonight? He asked. She looked down, eyes guilty. This was his birthday and she was ruining it with her bullshit. It's nothing. I'm sorry. You should be inside with your friends. Not focused on me, she said. 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧. Don't tell me what to do. Now spill it. You've got a mopey look on your face even if you are trying to hide it. And it's warm as shit in there. Why are you keeping your jacket on? He questioned her. She took a draw of her cigarette, still not looking at him. It really is nothing, she tried to insist. Don't lie to me, he warned. Misaki sighed. Me and Ijiro just had a thing before we left and I'm sorry that I'm ruining your birthday. I just don't really know anyone apart from you, him, and Mina. I'm just feeling a lot of anxiety. I'm sorry. I'm probably going to go soon, she admitted to him. He ran a hand through his hair. Her hands were shaking. He grabbed onto her wrist, making her drop her cigarette. You're fine. They all really like you. Whatever it was you and Shitty Hair argued about, I'm sure it's stupid. He loves you, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. He won't want you being upset about whatever it is he's done. I bet any money he's feeling just as shitty as you are right now. He tried to reassure her. Misaki balled her hands into fists before releasing them, the shaking having stopped. How do you know it's something he's done? She asked, trying to make a joke. Please. He's a good guy but he's dumb as rocks, he tooted. Misaki cracked a smile and Bakugo's eyes softened. That's not very nice, she said, but he could tell she didn't mind. You feeling okay though? You're looking all red and like you're gonna puke, he said. She shook her head. I'm fine, she said. He glowered. Why was she lying? Why are you wearing that jacket? It's so warm tonight. You'll overheat and get dehydrated if you don't take it off and drink some water, he said. She swallowed nervously. It's fine, she brushed off. Come on. Talk to me. You said it was because you thought your top was too revealing? Well, who cares? He asked. Misaki tried to come up with a response but her tongue got tied, unable to form any words. 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧. If you're feeling insecure then quit that shit. You're hot as fuck. You shouldn't be doubting that. Does Shitty Hair not tell you that? He questioned. He had definitely let the alcohol hit his head. Why did he say that? Misaki felt her heart pound. He thought she was hot? No. He does. It's just, it doesn't matter, she sighed. Whatever. Just take it off before you pass out. We've got night patrol tomorrow and I'm not having you off your game, he warned. Business as always, she teased him softly. He rolled his eyes at her. You're such a pain in my ass, you know that? He said. She smiled softly, placing her hand on his arm. He felt his breath hitch at the sudden contact. Thanks for checking on me, Bakugo-san. I'm sorry I've made your birthday a downer, she said. He let go of her wrist, kissing his teeth at her. Whatever. As if you'd have the power to do that, he said. Misaki rolled her eyes. I'm going to buy a drink. "Do you want to come with me?" she asked him, ignoring his insult. "Whatever," he said. He followed her inside the bar, glancing down at her ass. Her black skirt was nice and short, her legs on display. She looked so good. What the hell was he thinking? He shook his head, trying to shake the thought from his brain. He was awful. Kirishima was his best friend. He needed to get a grip of himself. They got to the bar and Misaki leaned her head back, looking at him. "What do you want, birthday boy?" she asked. He cleared his throat, not wanting to admit how much that look did to him. He looked up at the bartender, standing next to Misaki. "I'll take a pint." "She'll have a glass of Sauvignon and a pint of water," Bakugo ordered. "How'd you know Sauvignon was my favorite?" she asked. He shrugged. "I'm observant. I saw Ciro get you a Pinot and your face scrunched up, yet when Mina got you the Sauvignon you got a happy look on your face," he explained. "Didn't think you'd pay so much attention," she teased him. He tutayed, paying for their drinks. "Bakugo-san," she exclaimed. He handed her the glass of wine. "What?" he asked. "I was going to pay for those," she pouted. "Who cares? They're paid for now," he shrugged. He picked up the other 2 drinks, heading back to their table. He let her slip into the booth before him, sitting next to her. He passed her the glass of water and she gulped some down. "Better?" he asked. She nodded, smiling at him. "You okay?" Kirishima asked her. "I'm fine," she said. "Oh, she's too warm and she's getting dehydrated." "She's just had too much to drink," Bakugo said, covering for her. Kirishima frowned, putting his hand on her neck and forehead. Her cheeks were flushed and small beads of sweat had gathered around her forehead. "You are quite warm, Saki," he said. "It's nothing. I'm all right," she promised him. Bakugo narrowed his eyes at the two. "It is super warm in here though, Furukawa. You sure you're all right with that jacket?" Kaminari asked. She plastered a smile on, nodding. "Yeah," she lied. Bakugo watched as Kirishima smiled nervously and his eyes narrowed even further. "I meant it before. You're really warm, Saki. Do you want to head home soon?" Kirishima asked her. "You don't need to go home. Just take the jacket off. Let loose, girl," Mina encouraged. Misaki looked at Kirishima and Bakugo could see him having an internal battle with himself. After a few moments, he nodded and Misaki took the jacket off. Bakugo's eyes nearly fell out of his head. Holy fuck. She wasn't kidding when she said her top was revealing. And she looked sexy as hell. He looked down at his pint, trying to repress a groan. "Ooh, looking good," Mina said. Misaki smiled nervously. "Thanks," she said. Kirishima placed his arm around her waist. He leaned in, whispering something that Bakugo couldn't make out. The table's conversation carried on as normal and Bakugo thought he was going to lose his mind. How could they all sit there and pretend that Misaki wasn't the hottest person they'd ever seen? He didn't get it. She continued to sip the water that Bakugo had gotten her, grateful that he pushed it on her. "I think I'm ready to head home soon. Is that okay?" Kirishima asked her. She nodded. "Yeah. I'm not feeling too good," she said. Her cheeks were red as she continued to drink her water. Kirishima rubbed her back, pressing a kiss to her cheek. "Let's get you home, baby," Kirishima cooed to her. "Okay," she agreed. Bakugo tried not to roll his eyes. He moved out of the booth, letting Misaki and Kirishima out. Kirishima kept an arm around her waist, holding her steady. "Drink a lot of water. I'm not gonna save your ass on patrol if you're too hungover to protect yourself," Bakugo told her. Misaki flipped him off. "You're such an asshole." "I'll be fine," she scoffed. The table laughed as Bakugo scowled at her. "Get home safely, guys. Kiri, take good care of her," Mina instructed. Kirishima saluted at her, grinning. "I'll get her to bed, don't worry." "We'll see you later, guys," Kirishima said. He moved his hand to small of Misaki's back, guiding her out of the bar. "You okay, Saki?" he asked as they got outside. "I'm tired," she mumbled. "I know. We'll be home soon." "You want to stay at mine?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah. Can you take me home in the morning?" she asked. "Course I can," he said. He hailed down a taxi and he helped her in. He placed his hand on her thigh as the taxi drove to his house. He gave it a small squeeze, making her look up at him. "I'm sorry, Saki. I didn't mean to get so weird and make you uncomfortable like that, he said softly. It's okay, 𝐈𝐺𝐻𝗄. We're okay, she said. He smiled, kissing her cheek. I love you, Saki. And I don't want you feeling bad because of me and my big, dumb mouth. You're amazing and too good for me, he said. You're drunk, 𝐈𝐺𝐻𝗄. We're fine now, okay? I love you too, she said. He held her tightly in the taxi, kissing her shoulder. You're the best, he said. Bakugo laid on his bed, his mind a mess. His heart was thudding loudly in his ears. He couldn't get Misaki off his mind. He was drunk. That's all this was. He didn't actually care about her. But when she had wandered off, all alone, he couldn't help but follow her. Make sure she was okay. Why didn't she know how hot she was? Why wasn't she confident in herself? What made her like that? Did she not know what she did to him? How she made his brain feel like scrambled egg. How all he could picture was her. What are you thinking about? He looked over to the blonde girl by his side, drawing circles on his chest. He wanted to swat her hand away but decided against it. He didn't know why he brought her home. He was regretting this. He didn't even want to go home with anyone. Why had he done this? It's nothing. Do you want any water or anything? He asked. I'm okay. That was amazing though. Did you enjoy it? She asked him. Yeah, sure, he said. He wasn't lying. He just pretended she was Misaki. I don't do this a lot. I was hoping to see a friend tonight, but I'm not disappointed to have ran into you, she said. You don't need to explain yourself to me, he said. She kissed his cheek, moving one of his arms to cuddle onto it. He wanted to push her off. He wasn't a cuddler. He had sex and then that was it. He was just happy he was able to actually have sex this time. His ego couldn't have taken any more knocks to it. I'll leave soon. I need this for a few more moments, she said quietly. It's fine, he muttered. The girl sighed as she closed her eyes, burying her face in his arm. He shut his eyes, picturing Misaki in her place. He wanted to hold her close. Have her rest her head on his chest. What the hell was he thinking? He needed to knock these thoughts out of his head. He didn't do this. Not with anyone. Especially not with her. Never with her. How long are you in town for? He asked. Only a few more days. I came to see a friend but, the girl trailed off, sighing. But, he pressed. He didn't know why he was interested. He wasn't really. He just needed a distraction. That's all she was. But she's not been speaking to me. I made a massive mistake and I just want to apologize. I feel awful about it, she sighed. What did you do? He asked. He didn't care. He just needed her to talk so he didn't think of Misaki. I know I shouldn't have done it. I don't even know how it came about. I started to work with her ex and at first I avoided him, didn't want anything to do with him. But we were put on missions together and one went bad. I nearly died but he saved me. It was hard to ignore him after that. So we just started talking and then we started going out together and then we just started sleeping together. I didn't tell her about it because I knew she wouldn't understand. She wouldn't get it. She phoned me one day and he answered it. I tried to explain but she just hung up. She's not spoken to me since, the girl confessed to him. Wow. Sounds pretty shitty, he said. I know. But they broke up 2 years ago. I know he was a bad boyfriend to her but he's changed now. What? I thought he had, she muttered. Bad how? He asked. He was always knocking her confidence down. He was so good at manipulating things. He'd say one thing with a smile to lure you and then hit you where it hurt. She was with him for 3 years. Nearly the full time of school. He had manipulated her so well, she'd have done anything for him. Absolutely anything in the world and he knew it. And he used it. He treated her terribly. Always putting her down. Making her doubt herself. She puts on a front now, but I know she's still affected, she explained. Sounds like an asshole, Bakugo said. He was. But I swear he's changing. Sometimes it feels like he's different. Like he's put it all behind him. But then he answered my phone to her and I just, ugh. I don't know. I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, she sighed. Bakugo shrugged. You clearly needed to talk to someone about it. Clearly needed a distraction as well, he said. It was a pretty good distraction, she said. I don't normally do this, but you can stay over if you want. I feel bad kicking you out when you're so sad, he said. What a romantic, she rolled her eyes. You asked for a distraction, not romance, he said. I suppose you're right, she said. I'm gonna get some water. You want anything, he asked. Do you have a top I could wear, she asked. Sure, he said. He rummaged through his drawers, chucking her a top. He walked into his kitchen, looking at his phone. Hey man. Sorry for leaving your birthday so early. Did you enjoy the rest of your night? Kirishima. It was fine. Took a girl home. She's staying over. Bakugo. Actually staying over? Must have been good. Me and Saki are gonna get lunch tomorrow. Do you and Mystery Girl wanna come? Kirishima. It's not like that, but sure. I'll ask her. She's not from here, so she probably doesn't have any plans. She's going through some girl issues. Furukawa can probably help her better than I can. Bakugo. He filled a glass with water, chugging it down. Taking her to lunch? Letting her stay over? What the hell was he doing? This wasn't like him at all. At least if Furukawa was going out for lunch tomorrow, it meant she was feeling okay. That her and Kirishima were okay. And that was good. That was great even. Of course it was. He walked back to his room and saw her on her phone. My friend wants to go to lunch tomorrow. No, you don't really have much to do here, so do you want to come? He asked. She smiled. Sure. I'd like that, she said. He got back into bed and turned away from her. Night. I'll speak to you in the morning, he said. She cuddled his arm quickly before turning her back to him. Kirishima held the chair out for Misaki and she smiled gratefully at him. I'm so happy we talked things over. I felt so bad that you were upset with me. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said. I know, Ijiro. Let's just not think about it anymore. It's all in the past, she said. He kissed her cheek, squeezing her thigh. Misaki drummed her fingers on the table, wanting to be anywhere else. Kirishima rested his arm around her waist, rubbing his thumb along her hip. Your head okay? He asked. Yeah. Luckily the water that Bakugo-san made me drink helped, she said. He's good for stuff like that. Do you have his present? He asked. Yeah. But I don't know if I want to give it to him. He said he doesn't really like gifts, she said. What? No way. Kirishima said. It's true. Well, that's what he said at least, she said. He's just trying to act tough. Everyone loves gifts, he said. She rested her head on his shoulder, letting out a sigh. I hope he likes it. I just saw it in the shop and thought he'd like it, she said. He'll love it. I wonder where he is anyway. He actually took a girl home last night. Let her sleep over and everything. He never does that. She must be special, he told her. She tried to hide the grimace that wanted to break out on her face. Why did she feel so annoyed? He was allowed to do anything he wanted. Misa-chan. Is that really you? Misaki froze in her seat. Bile rose in her throat. You know each other? She heard Bakugo ask. Misaki stared at the spot in front of her, heart pounding. Are you okay? Kirishima asked her. Her head finally looked up and she scowled when she saw Ame standing next to Bakugo. What the hell are you doing here? She hissed. Saki, Kirishima exclaimed. She stood up, getting away from the table. I've been looking for you everywhere. Please. I just want to talk to you, Tatami begged. Misaki looked between Bakugo and Tatami, her eyes narrowed. Why the hell are you two together? She demanded. What's going on? Kirishima asked. We met after you left last night, Bakugo said. How convenient. You see us together so you go after him as well? You're insane, Misaki growled. No. I promise it's not like that. I didn't even know you were there. I'm only here so I could find you and talk to you. Tatami defended herself. Misaki huffed, crossing her arms. I've had enough of this. I'm going home, Misaki said. Misa-chan. Please hear me out, Tatami said. Hear you out? Fuck you. First you fuck my ex and now my coworker? Who's next? My boss? My boyfriend? Misaki spat at her. Misaki. That's enough, Kirishima said, standing up. Bakugo felt the blood drain from his face. He slept with her ex-friend? Oh no. This was bad. Very bad. Why are you on her side? Misaki glared at Kirishima. I'm not on anyone's side. I just think you're being way harsh, he said. Misaki felt her hands shake. She wanted the ground to swallow her whole. She was enraged. "Misaki, please. I was just hoping I'd find you so I could talk to you. I've been looking everywhere for you. Just please let me talk to you," Tatami begged her. "Are you stalking me now? Go back home." "I'm not speaking to you," Misaki said. Tatami reached out, holding onto her hand. "Please. I made a mistake. I just want to explain myself," she pleaded. Misaki snatched her hand back as if she'd been burned. "Oh, I'm done here. There's nothing to discuss," Misaki said. She grabbed her bag from her chair, glaring at everyone. "Saki, come on. You're being far too crazy right now," Kirishima said. Misaki grit her teeth. "I'm going outside. Do not follow me," she warned. She stormed out of the cafe, leaning against the wall. Her stomach was turning. She wanted to be sick. She was going to be sick. She rounded the corner, throwing up into a bin. Her anxiety was spiking. She could feel a panic attack coming on and she was trying to steady her breathing. She wasn't ready to see Tadame. She especially wasn't ready to see her with Bakugo. Why was she so mad at that? "Hey, what's going on?" she heard Bakugo ask her. She couldn't look up. She placed her hands on her knees as she tried to steady her breathing. Her vision got blurry and she held onto the wall for support. She felt a hand on her back, making her jolt. She hugged herself tightly, her body shaking. It felt like pins and needles were going through her skin. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. "Furukawa, look up. Keep your head up," he instructed her. He placed a hand firmly on her back, leading her to stand up straight. He held onto her shoulders, giving them a squeeze. "You're okay. I'm here now," he said. She took a deep breath, finally looking up at him. "Thank you," she whispered. "What's going on?" "What's happening?" he asked her. "That's my old best friend. From home," she told him. "Are you the friend she fucked over?" "She was talking about it last night," he said. She tooted, the panic starting to die down. "I wasn't even out of town for a month before she slept with my ex. He was so awful to me and she did it anyway. How can I trust her now?" she asked him. "Awful how? Does Kirishima know about any of this?" he asked. She shook her head. "Oh, he made me feel so small and worthless. I didn't want to tell Ijiro and have him look at me the same way," she admitted. "You're not small or worthless, so get that useless shit out of your head. I don't want to tell you what to do, but she feels terrible. Do with that what you will," he said. "Will you stay? If I talk to her?" she asked. She looked up at him, her eyes big as they pleaded with him. He swallowed the lump in his throat before giving a curt nod. "Yeah, I will," he said. She sighed, dropping her head. "I'm really sorry you had to witness this. I didn't want you to see this side of me," she said. "You're fine," he said. "I think I'm ready to go back in." "Is Ijiro mad at me?" she asked. "I don't think so. He's pretty surprised though," he said. She hid her face behind her hands. "I'm so embarrassed," she groaned. Bakugo squeezed her shoulders again. "Let's go back in. I'll be there for you," he said. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked up at him, a smile ghosting on her lips. "Thank you," she said. He led her back into the restaurant and saw Tadame and Kirishima looking very awkward as they sat together. Misaki cleared her throat before sitting next to Kirishima. He placed his hand on her thigh as she sat down, shooting her an awkward smile. "Are you okay?" Kirishima said. "Fine," Misaki said. Bakugo sat across from them, glancing around the three of them. "We ordered for you guys. I got you a smoked salmon salad and got you a steak." "Bakugo," Kirishima said. Bakugo nodded as Misaki wrinkled her nose. "Thanks," she said. "You came back," Tadame said. She nodded. "You have 10 minutes. Then I'm going home," Misaki said. "Thank you. That's all I need," Tadame said. Misaki made a show of sitting her phone on the table and starting a timer. "Start," Misaki said. Tadame wrung her wrists. "First of all, Yo and I really do work together. So that's why we started talking." Tatami started. "Why are you calling him Yo? How close are you two?" Misaki asked. "When he started working with me, I didn't talk to him. I just ignored him. But a mission went wrong and he saved my life. I couldn't ignore him after that. Once that happened, We just kept seeing each other and speaking to each other. Then he asked me out. And I said no, I promise I did. But I don't know. I just thought I owed it to him. I didn't want to tell you before we had decided on what it was. I'm so sorry, Misa-chan. Please forgive me, Tatami rambled. Misaki sighed, resting her hand against her forehead. You were there for me every time he hurt me. Every time I cried over him. After every argument we had. You helped me pick myself back up after he tore me to pieces. And I'm just meant to forgive you? Misaki asked her. Kirishima frowned. Why didn't he know any of this? I know. But I swear he's changed. I'm sure if you came home to visit, he'd apologize instantly, Tatami said. Misaki glowered, folding her arms. I don't want his apology. It's far too late for that. If I never hear from him again, that'd be enough for me. He's just going to discard you after he's ruined you like he did me, Misaki said. Don't say that. He's different now, Tatami said. The waiter brought their food over, providing a much-needed distraction from the building tension. Thank you, Kirishima said to the waiter. Misaki scrunched her nose at her salad, poking at it with her fork. Bakugo honed in on the way she picked around the smoked salmon. That man put me through 3 years of hell. I had to work so hard just to claw myself up to be at a place where I felt like I could breathe. You know how many nightmares I had over him. You know how long it took me to leave the house if it wasn't school or work-related. I will never see myself or the world the same again, Misaki told her. I know, but he was only a teenager then. He's grown up. He really is different. I think he loves me, Misa-chan. I want you to be okay with it, Tatami said. You knew I wouldn't be, and that's why you kept it from me. How long has this even been going on for? Before I left? Misaki asked her. Tatami swallowed, looking at the table. 2 months after you broke up was when it first happened, she admitted quietly. Misaki scowled at her. He can't change. You'll just get hurt, Misaki said. I honestly thought you'd be over it by now. It was 2 years ago since you broke up. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Tatami now tried to deflect. Unbelievable, Misaki shook her head. The timer went off and Misaki grabbed her phone. You're sticking up for him like your life depends on it, yet you still fucked Bakugo-san? You're either a cheater or he's not bothered to ask you out. Loves you my ass, she scoffed. We're not exclusive. I didn't do anything wrong. Tatami protested. I'm going home. I can't deal with this, she said. She stood up again and Kirishima held onto her arm. I'll take you home, he said. Misaki narrowed her eyes at Bakugo. She reached into her bag and tossed the book she got at him. I hope you two are very happy together. Happy birthday, Bakugo-san, she muttered. She stormed out again and Kirishima put some money on the table. I'm really sorry, guys. I don't really understand what's going on. I'll talk to her. I'm sure it'll blow over and you guys will be friends again, Kirishima said. Bakugo picked up the book, his eyes widening as he saw the cover. No offense, Kirishima, but you're dumb as shit if you think this is going to blow over. Did you not listen to a word she said? You fucked up worse than you let on last night. She'd be fully in the right to never speak to you again, Bakugo said, also standing. Where are you going? Tatami asked him. I'm going home. You're more pathetic than I thought. Go back to your shithead boyfriend, he said. He left enough money for his bill and followed Kirishima out the restaurant. You didn't need to be so mean, he said. Are you stupid? Do you not care about how fucking shitty Furukawa feels right now? That girl hurt her and you're more concerned about making sure Furukawa sees her point of view. I get you like to have harmony and all that shit, but fucking stick up for your girlfriend. She's upset and you're concerned about how mean I was? Pathetic, Bakugo sneered at him. What's your problem, man? I know Saki. Actually know her. I know that she'll be upset to be fighting with her best friend like this. Just stay out of it. You've never even had a girlfriend, so what do you know? Kirishima bit back. Bakugo clenched his fist. I don't need to have a girlfriend to know that you take her side in public, whether you think she's right or wrong. Do you even know where she is? She's not here. She left. Bakugo pointed out. Kirishima looked around, groaning when he realized Bakugo was right. He ran off in the direction of Misaki's apartment and Bakugo ran a hand through his hair. What the hell had he gotten involved in? Doubt. Chapter text. Baby. I'm sorry you felt like I made you look bad in front of sensei. But you know I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't just made such a careless mistake, right? How are you meant to learn if I don't point these things out to you? You're going out like that? Do you want other men to look at you? Is that what it is? Am I not good enough for you so you want other men to give you attention? Are you that much of a slut? Come on, babe. I know you had plans to see your family this weekend, but I need you. I'm just so stressed over this test. You know I can't study without your help. You don't want me to fail, do you? If you don't help me, it'll be all your fault when I fail. Look, everyone. Starlight may have an impressive quirk, but that doesn't mean much since she can't control it. She just doesn't know what she's doing yet. I should get that mission, not her. Ah, come on, baby. I'm just concerned about your safety. You know you're not as strong as I am. Why are you acting so crazy? No, I never said you weren't strong. I never said that. Why would I say that? You know I think the world of you. You do this all the time. You make up things that I've said, then you get yourself upset over them. It's not actually me you're mad at. It's yourself. You're weak, Misaki. You need to grow up and stop letting these childish ideals keep you down. You're just not strong enough to be out on your own yet. I don't think you should take the licensing exam. You're just not ready for it, baby. You failed your exam? Poor baby. I told you that you weren't ready. You should have listened to me. Not everyone is cut out to pass it the first time. There's no shame in that. You just need to work harder. You're clearly slacking off somewhere. I know, baby. I know you tried your best. Your best just isn't quite good enough. You look gorgeous, baby. Imagine how pretty you'd look if you just covered up your stomach area. Come on. You know that's not what I meant. I think you're beautiful, but that dress is doing you no favors. You just need to drop 10 pounds and it'd be perfect on you. Why don't you go put something a bit baggier on, huh? Me. Stop crying. I wouldn't have to yell at you if you just fucking listened to me. You think I want to yell at you? You think I like it when you make me yell at you? Now quit your fucking crying and try again. Stop giving me those excuses. You're not trying hard enough. Ah, come on, baby. I'm your boyfriend. Don't you want me to feel good? Do you not like making me feel good? Just this once tonight and I'll never ask you for anything ever again. I promise. You never do anything right. Just get out of my sight. Don't care about Kiyoshi. Can you not see that I've got enough on my plate? Go cry to someone else. I can't deal with you. I just wanted my girlfriend to comfort me and you make it all about yourself. Misaki sobbed into her pillow as all the memories she had repressed from her relationship with Shindo came flooding back. Tatame had been through them all with her and she wanted her to understand? To forgive her for betraying her? She was inconsolable. The tears refused to stop flowing. Saki, open up. Let me in, please, she heard Kirishima beg as he pounded on the door. She couldn't stand. She couldn't get up to let him in. She heard the door open and she couldn't decide if she was grateful or annoyed at herself for not locking it. Kirishima was quick to her side, pulling her into his arms. Saki, talk to me. What's going on? He asked. She tried to speak, but the words all came out as a jumbled babble. He stroked her hair, holding her close to him. He laid her head in his lap, just brushing through her hair as she continued to cry. Shush. I'm here now. I'm here, he soothed. I never want to speak to her again, Misaki finally managed to choke out. You don't need to tell me the ins and outs. I can see that this has really upset you. But I'm right here if you want to talk, he encouraged her. Misaki clutched onto his leg as she cried harder, Shindo's words bouncing around her head. Omi, why can't you see that I'm just trying to do what's best for you? He's not a good friend to you. He wants to sleep with you. I don't know why, but he does. You shouldn't talk to him anymore. Unless, of course, you don't care about us? You care about our happiness, right? Baby, you're just not smart enough to be out on your own. You need to work with me. I need to keep you by my side at all times. Nobody else will help you out as much as I will. I know Kiyoshi says that you're strong and smart, but he just doesn't want to hurt your feelings. He just doesn't like us together. He's against us, baby. Why do you stay so close to him? I'm so disappointed in you, Misaki. I told you that I didn't like it when you spoke to that guy and you didn't listen. It's like you want me to be mad at you. I don't like getting angry and calling you mean names, but when you do things like that I just can't help it. Why can't you think about how hard this is for me? Whatever has happened, whatever you've been told, I want to fix it. I hate seeing you like this, Kirishima said softly to her. You took her side, Misaki eventually sniffled. His hand froze momentarily before he sighed and continued brushing through her hair. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to seem like I was taking her side. I just thought you should hear her out. She seemed so upset. I just thought there were two sides of the story and she deserved to be heard, he said. Why couldn't you just trust me? Misaki asked. I don't know. I just like to see the best in people, he said. But it feels like you always try see the worst in me, she said. He carded through her hair, letting out a sigh. That's not true. I just thought you'd be sad if you didn't make up with her, he said. I just wish you trusted my judgment, she said. I'm sorry, Saki. I'm really sorry, he said. She sat up, wiping her eyes as she moved further away from him. I hate when you play devil's advocate. I know you like to see both sides, but I'm your girlfriend. You're meant to be on my side. You're meant to trust that I know what I'm doing. I'm not stupid, she said. I know you're not. I messed up. I'm sorry, he said. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with guilt. She sighed, shuffling back to his side. He was quick to wrap his arm around her shoulders, rubbing her arm. It's okay, she said softly. She wrapped her arms around his torso, holding him close to her. He continued to rub up and down her arm, pressing a soft kiss to her head. Do you want to talk about it? He said. She swallowed, looking up at him. I don't know. I spent 2 years trying to block it out. Trying to prove him wrong. What if I talk about it and you agree with him? She asked. I won't, he promised. She sighed, looking down. I met Shindo on my first day of school. He was in the year above me in my brother's class. They were friendly but not quite friends. He was also in Tadama's class and that's how I met her. We just hit it off straight away. He was so charming and he was an older boy so he felt more mature. He was so nice and attentive for the first year. Then he started getting jealous and paranoid. He didn't like me hanging out with my friends because if I didn't study with him he'd fail. Kiyoshi wasn't his biggest fan so he tried to make us less close so that he couldn't tell me how wrong Shindo was for me. He began to shout at me all of the time. But it was my fault because I would upset him. I didn't mean to upset him. I just kept making mistakes and he would get so mad at me. He'd break my things because I just couldn't stop upsetting him and he couldn't help it, Misaki told him. Her chest got tight as more tears fell down her face. It wasn't your fault, he said softly. It was. If I hadn't been so stupid and weak, I wouldn't have needed his protection all of the time. If I had been smarter and listened to him more, I'd have passed my licensing exam on the first go. But I was just so stupid and I always thought I knew better. So then when he'd shout at me and hit the wall, I knew that I deserved it, she whimpered. Kirishima held her tightly. No. That's not your fault. None of it. You're not stupid and you're not weak. Bakugo failed the exam on his first time as well. You don't think he's stupid or weak, right? He asked. Her eyes widened slightly as she shook her head. No, she agreed. See? So why would you be? You didn't deserve any of that. You're so precious to me, Saki. I'm sorry I thought I knew better. I was wrong, he said. He was wrong. Something Shindo never said. Thank you. I got so mad at Tatame because she would always tell me how awful he was and to break up with him. So hearing them together, it just broke my heart all over again. I'm sorry I was so crazy, she said. You weren't crazy, Saki. You're right to feel upset, he said. Will you rest with me? My head hurts from all my crying and I have night patrol later, she said. Why don't you call off, he suggested. Misaki shook her head. Oh. He doesn't deserve that power over me, she said. Kirishima kissed her temple. You are so much stronger than you give yourself credit for. I can't believe you held all that in for so long, he said. Misaki laid down, pulling him with her. I don't want to talk anymore. Just lie with me please, she said. Of course, he agreed. She let out a sigh as she snuggled further against his chest. Kirishima was safe. He was steady. He was what she needed. Bakugo paced the agency. He hadn't managed to sleep before his night shift. He was angry. He was angry that he had slept with Tadame. He knew he shouldn't have gone home with her. But he needed to get Misaki off of his mind. And in turn, he'd upset her. If he'd known that Tatami was speaking about her, he'd have never invited her to lunch. Never allowed her to get anywhere near Misaki. He never wants to see Misaki like that ever again. He'd do anything in his power to prevent her feeling like that ever again. What was he saying? It wasn't his job to do that. It was Kirishima's. As he paced the agency, he couldn't help but think about if she was okay. Was she going to even show up? 𝗏𝗃 looked over to him, adjusting the denim turtleneck that he sported. What's wrong, Dynamite? You don't seem on your game, he said. Nothing, sir. I'm just ready to get started, Bakugo lied. 𝗏𝗃 looked past him, nodding to himself. Starlight. There you are. No reports to be done, so you'll just head straight out on patrol. I want you to go further afield to Hosu tonight. The agencies there are running a bit thin, so they've requested assistance. I'll have a car take you, 𝗏𝗃 said. Bakugo's breath caught in his throat as he looked at her. Her face was blank as she just nodded at 𝗏𝗃. She seemed so devoid of emotion. Bakugo followed silently as 𝗏𝗃 sent them to the front of the agency to wait for their car. Misaki remained quiet, not knowing how to say anything to him. She knew it was irrational, but she was mad at him for sleeping with Tatami. Furious even. She felt betrayed by him even if she knew he had done nothing wrong. The car arrived and they both climbed in, still not saying anything to each other. The car drove off in an awkward silence. The radio played lowly to at least provide some form of noise, so they weren't in complete silence. Bakugo cleared his throat. He hated this. Thank you. For the book, he said. It's no problem, she said. He looked down, repressing a sigh. It was the best gift I've gotten. Nobody else even knows I like Nakahara. Where did you find the signed copy? He asked. I found it when I was with Ishido-chan. In an antique bookstore. I know you don't like gifts, but I saw it and just thought of you. So I wanted to get you it, she said. You were right. About gifts. I should appreciate that people try. So I mean it. Thank you, he said. It's okay, she whispered. Her hands shook ever so slightly, which he was quick to pick up on. Are you okay? He asked. He hated how stuttery he was getting. How nervous he felt. She gave a curt nod. I'm fine. I just ask that you do not bring her around me again, she said. I won't. It was just a one-time thing. If I'd known who she was to you, I'd have never gone there, he promised. You're an adult. You can do what you want, she said. You're more important to me than some random girl. I'd rather not hurt your feelings, he said. She blinked a couple of times, the words hitting her chest and making it feel funny. Thank you, she whispered. She held her hands in her lap, picking the skin around her nails. It's okay, he said. They fell back into an uncomfortable silence. Bakugo fucking hated it. He was losing his mind. The driver stopped outside a street in Hosu and the two pro-heroes were quick to leave the car, the silence suffocating them. Have you been here before? He asked. Misaki shook her head. Just follow me then, he said. Misaki trailed after Bakugo, her mind refusing to focus. She heard a shout which quickly brought her back to reality. Help! The two pro-heroes turned around quickly, seeing flames engulf one of the buildings. Fuck! Bakugo cursed. He propelled himself towards the flames as Misaki used the dust in the air to carry her forward. There were people screaming as the building began to collapse under the flames. Misaki threw up a barrier of dust, protecting civilians from falling debris. These don't look like natural flames. Must be a quirk, Bakugo observed. Misaki ducked as a part of the building flew towards her. The whole building is going to come down. We need to evacuate the area, she shouted to him. You start that. I'm going to find the cause of this fire, he called back. Misaki shielded her eyes as the flames grew brighter. Everyone, follow me. I'll help you evacuate safely, she ordered. She raised some dust, turning it into an arrow to point to safety. She ran through the area, helping people escape the building. She cleared the dust in the area, giving people a clearer view. She flicked her wrist, creating pathways for people to escape the building. She flew up the different levels, creating dust barriers to help people scale the building without getting hurt. There were so many levels to this building. So many people. Is that everyone? 𝗵𝗃 shouted. The crowd began to nod before a woman pushed through them. My son. He's still inside, the woman cried. 𝗵𝗃 looked to see a small child crying in the building on one of the upper floors. Shit. I'll save him, she promised. 𝗵𝗃 ran into the building, trying to ignore the heat that was licking at her ankles. She moved the dust in the room to create a clearer path for her to run through. She tried to manipulate the dust particles in the smoke, but there was too many. You're just not strong enough, baby. You can't do it on your own. You need me to help you. To protect you? 𝗵𝗃 grit her teeth as she kept running forward. He was wrong. She didn't need him. The boy's cries got louder and she hurriedly scooped him into her arms. It's okay. I've got you now. I'll get you out of here, she promised. She moved the dust particles into a small mask, covering his mouth so that he wouldn't inhale any more smoke. She ran back towards the exit, desperate to get out of this building. Baby, when will you learn? Your quirk is handy, sure, but you don't know what you're doing. You're not ready to be out on your own yet. Just let me lead the way for you. I'll make all the decisions. You know you're not good at that. She ignored the tears pricking her eyes as she continued to run. She heard the sound of the beams breaking and she forced herself to run faster. Her lungs were screaming at her as more smoke entered them. She was nearly at the exit. She was almost there. With one final push, she forced her legs to work even harder, getting out of the building. She made sure the boy was safe before turning back to the building. She had to help Bakugo. The area was evacuated, so now all she had to focus on was the building itself. You're just not cut out for the big leagues. You'd be perfect as my sidekick. Me and you forever. You just don't have the natural instincts needed to become a pro hero. You need me, baby. She didn't. She pushed through the building, eyes scanning for Bakugo. She heard him yell in the distance and she ran towards him. You bastard! Take that, she heard him shout. He was getting closer. You're weak. You're not strong. You can't do it. Just give up already. It hurts me watching you fail all of the time. Just accept the fact that you're not strong enough. The smoke had entered her body and she felt like she couldn't go on anymore. Her legs began to give out, unable to keep going. Enough is enough. Just give up. You'll never be good enough. Give up. 𝗵𝗃 felt her legs collapse under her as she fell to the ground. Shindo was right about her. He was right all along. She heard more cracking noises and she looked up. Her eyes widened as she saw the wall begin to fall down. She knew she needed to get out of there. Knew she needed to move. Incapable. Can't do anything. Her entire body froze as she watched the rubble hurtle towards her. She couldn't bring her legs to move. Couldn't run away. The wall got closer to her, the flames getting even hotter. She was weak. She wasn't good enough. She stared up at the falling wall. Shindo had been right about her all along. You'll never be anything without me. Starlight, why the hell aren't you answering? Bakugo shouted. He managed to find the villain who was burning the building, reprimanding him. Easily. He flew back, instantly searching for 𝗵𝗃. But she wasn't responding to any of his calls on their intercoms. She wasn't responding to anything. The building was empty, meaning she had managed to evacuate everyone like they had planned. If everyone was out safely, where the hell was she? Fuck, he shouted, still unable to see or hear anything from her. He needed to find her. Needed to get to her. He saw a collapsed wall and nearly flew right past it. Until he saw some white hair poking out from underneath it. That couldn't be her. He shot off an explosion at the wall, making it break apart. He landed over there, rummaging through the rubble. He desperately clawed through it. Starlight, you better not be under here. If you're under here and you're dead, I'll fucking kill you myself, he threatened. He continued to throw the rubble out of the way, his throat closing as he saw her sparkly catsuit. Don't you dare be hurt. Don't you fucking dare, he said. He set off a concentrated blast, getting more rubble out of the way. He finally got to her and he pulled her out of the rubble, holding her close to his chest. She was so still. Her hair was splayed out all over her face, some of it sticking to her. There was debris sticking out of her leg. It had gone so deep that he could see the bone. He wanted to be sick. Blood covered her body as various cuts and gashes littered her entire body. He buried his face in her hair, his heart pounding in his ears. He didn't care that he was getting covered in her blood. This wasn't happening right now. She wasn't hurt. She had to be fine. She had to be. Come on. You gotta be okay, he said. As he held her closer to him, he felt the faintest rise of her chest. His eyes snapped open and he was quick on his feet, flying forward. You're still alive. That means you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be fucking fine, he said. He didn't know if he was trying to reassure himself or her. He found a first aid tent and bolted towards it. I found her under a collapsed part of the building. Her breathing is faint but it's there. She needs an ambulance and a hospital, Bakugo instructed. The paramedics quickly took her out of his hands and he finally felt the adrenaline leave him. He placed a hand over his chest as his legs started to ache. He took a step back, unable to take his eyes off of her. Dynamite. We'll take care of her. You need to call Best Jeanist and let him know what happened, one of the paramedics said to him. He finally took his eyes off of her, giving him a brief nod. I'm coming with you to the hospital, Bakugo said. They loaded Misaki into the ambulance and before anyone could stop him, Bakugo climbed in behind her. Dynamite, you shouldn't. The area still needs someone, the paramedic tried to reason with him. She's my partner, god damn it. I'm making sure she's okay, Bakugo snapped. The ambulance began to drive off, the paramedics making quick work to try start healing her. Bakugo pulled out his phone, calling Best Jeanist. Dynamite? What's happened? Best Jeanist answered the phone. There was a villain with a fire quirk. He'd set a massive apartment building on fire. Starlight got all civilians evacuated and I reprimanded the villain but Starlight, she got hurt. A wall collapsed on her. She's barely breathing. We're on our way to hospital now, Bakugo explained. The words got caught in his throat. As if speaking them out loud made them true. Keep me updated on her progress. Good work reprimanding the villain. You're done for the night. Make sure she's okay, Best Jeanist instructed. Yes, Bakugo agreed. Best Jeanist hung up and Bakugo stared at his phone. He needed to call Kirishima. But it was the middle of the night. What if he didn't pick up? He shook his head. He needed to try anyway. He dialed Kirishima's number, tapping his foot impatiently as he waited for him to pick up. No answer. He tried again. No answer. He tried again and finally Kirishima answered. Dude, do you know what time it is? Kirishima yawned. She's hurt. You need to get to Hoso Hospital as soon as possible, Bakugo blurted out. What do you mean she's hurt? What happened? Kirishima asked, his voice sounding a lot more alert. The ambulance pulled into the hospital and Bakugo felt relief. We're at the hospital now. I'll explain when you get here. Just get your ass here as quickly as you can, Bakugo said. He hung up, following the paramedics out of the ambulance. He kept a steady eye on Misaki as they rushed her into surgery. The staff stopped him from following into the theater and he angrily paced. Why the hell did she let that building collapse on her? He knew she was strong enough to manipulate the atoms around it. He knew she was. He didn't know how long he had paced before he gave up, sitting on a chair outside of the theater. He placed his head in his hands, not knowing how to process what had happened. The minutes dragged on as he watched people rush in and out of the surgery. Bakugo! Where is she? He looked up and saw Kirishima rushing towards him. She's in surgery. She's been in there for hours now, he said. What happened? Kirishima demanded. Bakugo had never seen his friend so angry. So worried. There was an apartment building that had been set on fire. We split up. She was evacuating everyone. I went to stop the fire. She stopped responding on the intercoms. Everyone was evacuated but I couldn't find her anywhere. I eventually saw her hair poking out from under a collapsed wall. She's fucked her leg. I don't know how much smoke she inhaled. She was so still, Bakugo trailed off, his voice turning into a whisper. Kirishima sat next to him, placing a hand on his back. Thank God you were there. If she was by herself, she might not have been found. And then, Kirishima cut himself off, a sob catching in his throat. He balled his hands into fists, placing them over his eyes. Bakugo was quick to swap their positions, now placing his own hand on Kirishima's back. Hey, she's going to be fine. I know she is, Bakugo said. I can't lose her. I love her so much, Kirishima sobbed. Bakugo rubbed his friend's back, his teeth grit. How could he be so selfish? You won't lose her. She's going to pull through. She's tough as shit, Bakugo said. But was he comforting Kirishima or himself? I've been so fucking stupid with her and now she's hurt and I can't lose her. She's my whole world. I was so scared of losing her before, thinking I was driving her away, but now she might not even make it and I need her to be okay. Kirishima continued to cry. Bakugo rested his arm around Kirishima's shoulders, pulling him into his side. You're not losing her. Not from this and not for any other stupid reason. She loves you. More than anything, Bakugo said. A doctor cleared her throat, making the two boys look up. We've done all we can for now. She's stable. We managed to remove the smoke from her lungs. We still need to work on her leg and she had several broken ribs. She's still sleeping just now, but she's alive. We'll continue tomorrow, the doctor explained. What the hell? Why can't you keep going now? Bakugo asked. If we keep going now, her body won't be able to withstand the needed anesthetic. It'd do her more harm if we kept going. Her body needs to rest before we can keep going, the doctor said calmly. Bakugo clenched his fist but didn't argue back. Can I see her? Kirishima asked. We're moving her to a ward now. Once we've gotten her settled and comfortable, you can both see her, the doctor said. Kirishima sighed, dropping his head. I told you that she'd be okay, Bakugo said. You look like shit. Thanks for waiting here with her, but you need to go home, man. You're covered in dirt and blood. I don't even want to know whose it is, Kirishima said. Bakugo grit his teeth again. He didn't want to go home. He wanted to see her. To see for himself that she was okay. But he knew that Kirishima was right. He couldn't argue with him. Not without looking suspicious. When he saw her frail body, looking like she had died, no. Stop thinking like that. He was losing his mind. Bakugo stood up, placing his hand on Kirishima's shoulder. Keep me updated, Bakugo said. Kirishima nodded. Yeah. Thanks again, man. We're really lucky to have you, Kirishima said. No, they're not. If they were really lucky, Bakugo wouldn't be feeling so conflicted. He could pretend it was just a physical attraction to her before. Before he almost lost her. His Misaki. But she wasn't. She wasn't his. She was Kirishima's. His best friend's. She would never be his. No matter how much he wished otherwise. It's nothing. We're partners. I'm meant to have her back. I'm just sorry I wasn't there to stop her from getting hurt. But she was really strong. The building was filled with civilians. At least 100. She got all of them out. There was not a single injury from that fire apart from her. She saved them all, he said. That's my Saki. She's amazing, Kirishima breathed. Bakugo gave a small grunt of agreement before turning towards the exit. Take good care of her, Bakugo said. He walked down the hallway of the hospital ward, watching as the doctor took Kirishima into a room. He wanted that to be him. He didn't want to be leaving her behind. He didn't want to lose her.